Britain faces the biggest hit to living standards since the days of rationing after the Chancellor delivered his spring statement.
A very good morning to you. It is 6 o'clock. It's Thursday, the 24th of March. This is Breakfast on GBNews with Eamonn and Isabel.
We're live with you until 9:30 this morning. We're around Britain, we're around the world, we're on your TV, we're on your radio, we're online. And here's what's leading the news this morning.
The Chancellor has used his spring statement to show off what he calls the biggest package of tax cuts in a quarter of a century. But critics say the measures will do nothing to help those hit the hardest by the cost of living crisis.
Prime Minister will tell a NATO summit in Brussels today that the war in Ukraine is entering a new phase of aggression and humanitarian catastrophe. It's as he announces that the UK will double the number of missiles it sends to Ukraine.
And the Oscars are back this Sunday, so with preparations already underway in Hollywood, we'll bring you a preview of the festivities planned for the big night.
Join in, say hello, say good morning to us. GBViews at gbnews.uk, or you can tweet at GBnews.
So our top story this morning, the Chancellor used his spring statement yesterday in the House of Commons to reveal what he called the biggest package of tax cuts in 25 years. But it's brought warnings that Britain could face its biggest dip in living standards since the age of rationing.
So responding to the highest inflation in decades, Rishi Sunak announced a 5p a litre cut in fuel duty and a £3,000 increase in the threshold for national insurance contributions.
His cut to fuel duty, which came into effect straight away and is a response to skyrocketing costs due to the war in Ukraine, takes prices back to the level they were just a week ago.
The most surprising announcement came in the form of a penny cut to income tax, which would bring that to 19p when it comes into force in April 2024, so 2 years away, but also ahead of the likely next general election.
However, his statement has faced criticism from many groups hit hardest by the ongoing cost of living crisis for failing to safeguard the most vulnerable in society, from pensioners to those dependent on benefits.
The Shadow Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, called the statement misguided and warned families and businesses will now endure significant hardship.
And the Office of Budget Responsibility said in the wake of the statement that living standards would still fall 2%. That's the steepest drop since records began in the 50s.
They also forecast inflation would hit 8.7% as the year progresses, massively outstripping wage growth.
Well, for more on this, let's speak to economist and business consultant Vicky Price, who joins us in the studio. Very good morning. Lovely to see you, Vicky. Look, it's always hard to instantly assess the mood following on from one of these statements. And,
well, the mood's not good.
Rishi Sunak seemed pretty buoyant, didn't he, after he sat down yesterday? They won't be happy at Number 11 reading the papers, even, right-leaning supportive papers, quite critical of the Chancellor.
Well, the criticism is mainly that they haven't done very much for the cost of living crisis. As you've been saying, inflation is going up much more than anyone had expected. It was already going up before.
We're going to just interrupt. Sorry, Vicky. We haven't got your microphone on. If you could just possibly... We'll pause briefly.
If you give it to me, I'll do that. But anyway, it's we're basically saying... that's the mic on now.
There we go. We're back in business, Vicky. Sorry for bearing with. So just, he's been criticised because he hasn't addressed the cost of living crisis, you were saying.
Yes, absolutely. Inflation is going up much more than anyone had expected. And to hear that the OBR expects right now that the average, that's the Office for Budget Responsibility, the average for the year will be 7.8%. I mean, that's hugely greater than anyone had expected. And with it, of course, quite a substantial reduction in growth for this year. And very little growth, really. If you look at future years, 1.8, 2.2%, 1.7. So, after not just 3.8 this year, lots and lots of numbers, but what it means is a lot less than the 6% we were expecting. So there's a lot of uncertainty ahead, and even those inflation figures may not be right.
OK, it mightn't be what everybody wanted, but underneath it all, he's basically saying, guys, be very careful here because the cupboard's bare. Isn't he?
Well, the cupboard isn't really bare. Of course, he's got...
Why didn't he? Why didn't he have... If he had more wriggle room, why didn't he use it?
This is a big question.
Because he's not certain about what's going to happen to growth. Because of the Ukraine crisis, things could get considerably worse. And as it is, if the consumers feel that They've lost confidence up to a point. You've already seen consumer confidence decline for the last few months. They don't go out and spend, and businesses suffer from this cost of input crisis for them, because obviously not only energy prices, but also loads of other inputs coming, some of them from Russia, which have gone up hugely in price. And then, of course, in some sectors, wages have gone up quite significantly as well, where there are serious shortages. So if businesses can't cope and go out of business, so we may be looking at the situation this year being a lot worse than what those forecasts are suggesting. So he would probably need a little bit more. And I'm suspecting that he's saving it because he will need to step in at some point later this year.
Yeah, which is interesting because some of the promises he made yesterday are about future cut to income tax in 2024, which, you know, we know what that's about. That's a political move, isn't it? It's just before an election. But it also begs the question, you know, if he was saving stuff for the autumn, what was the point of this? Was he just tinkering around the edges? And the fact that he's introducing a cut here but raising national insurance there, it seems a very expensive sort of U-turn almost.
It's a little bit like with COVID and how he was reacting then, because you just didn't know what was going to happen next. So we had a series of mini budgets. So there's a little bit of giveaway there, then yes, we're going to take the furlough scheme away at the end of whichever month it was, and then announcing that in fact it's going to stay for a lot longer, and then changing some of the parameters, etc., etc. And I think we're in the same position now. It's not just the UK, I have to say, that across the world people are just not certain at all about the future.
I think the thing is, you look at it and you think, do you think we're stupid? Do you think we're fools? Okay, so you raise that threshold and then you tax a bit more here and whatever. And you think the administration to do that must cost more than the actual implementation or the effect.
Well, you're quite right. So the simplest thing would have been, let's not have the increase in national insurance contribution.
But he couldn't do that, could he? It was just...
Well, he could, but he's obviously been having a fight with number 10. And he may say he's the income tax cutting chancellor, but he just wants to get the finances back in some sort of reasonable balance. Well, they're not going to get in a reasonable balance. We're still going to have to be borrowing an awful lot. And of course, the debt interest payments are very high now, and the calculations
are... Is it 50 billion a year in interest alone?
85 billion next year.
Oh.
Yeah.
So it's quite a substantial number. It has been about 50. You're quite right.
We spend 45 billion a year on schools, to put it into context. And that's much harder to sell to the electorate, isn't it? That you're spending all this money but not actually getting anything for it at all.
Yes, but we did get quite a lot for it, which is that the economy would have done considerably worse if we hadn't borrowed, as he did, like lots of other countries did, and then put it back into the economy. So we put back something like just under 20% of our GDP back into the economy during the COVID period through extra stimulus measures, and also the Bank of England putting tons of money into the economy. Now, without that, we probably would be in recession still. So we have seen some benefit. But yes, of course, there is a price to pay, and interest rates are going up.
Vicky, you're fascinating. I've known you for a good few years. We've had many discussions over economics. You're an economic expert and forecaster and analyst. Could you mark his homework for him, Rishi Sunak, for the couple of years that he has been Chancellor? How do you think he's done, and where will we go under him? I mean, by and large, do you think he's a gold star? He's not. He's a whatever. What do you think?
I think over the whole of the COVID period, I'd put a 7, because he's actually done the right things, even though he left some things at the last minute. Huge uncertainty for businesses at various stages and for individuals. So you've seen how the furlough scheme's going up and down, for example, in terms of the numbers of people who've been on furlough. But in terms of this last statement, which isn't really a budget, but he did a little bit. He had done some stuff before, of course, with the help to consumers in relation to electricity bills. So that was something. But for this one, which really should have focused on the cost of living crisis, I'd put it 2 or 3.
Really?
Yes.
Gosh.
That's about 2 out of 10.
On the cost of living crisis. Yeah. So because people expected a lot more.
Yes, of course they do. And I think it's the patronising thing. We think, we're doing this, we're knocking 5p off a litre of fuel.
Yeah.
And then you're saying, but that's the price it was at last week.
Yeah.
And that's going to save me just about £100 a year. Who cares?
Assuming, of course,
Yeah.
that the petrol stations do reduce it and keep it with that and don't try and make a little bit of profit.
Yeah.
And in marking his homework, as it were, I always think it's really helpful to compare what the UK government's doing with other governments in similar economies, because we're all facing the same problems with inflation and shortage of energy prices increasing. So what are they doing? Are we seeing national insurance hikes, for example, in other countries, things like that?
What you're seeing is the opposite. You're seeing cuts in taxes. You're seeing also, for petrol prices, quite a lot of sort of fuel duties and everything else that other countries impose be reduced very significantly. You've seen in Italy, for example, right now, a windfall profits tax on energy companies and a 4.5 billion euros package to go back to industry and consumers. And I think one of the things that we're missing out completely here, even though there's a little bit of help for SMEs, is help to businesses with their costs. And that has not happened.
Gosh, 2 out of 10 for his homework. Vicky Price, thank you very much indeed. Vicky's an economics expert. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming in.
Appreciate it. The time, 10 minutes past 6. Good morning to you, or if you're watching or listening from. So we're talking about public finances. We're talking about the Chancellor's statement yesterday. How are you, the public, reacting to, for instance, the cut in fuel duty?
Well, our Wales reporter Lily Hewitson is in Whitchurch this morning for us. Very good morning to you, Lily. You've been taking the temperature there. What's the opinion? What's the view? What's their homework mark for the Chancellor?
Yes, good morning, Eamonn and Isabel. There's certainly a very divided reaction to the Chancellor's spring statement from people and politicians here in Wales. Now, it was definitely welcomed and applauded by the Welsh Tories, by ministers and members of the Senedd. I had a chat to Andrew R.T. Davies, the leader of the Welsh Conservatives, yesterday. He was very complimentary. He said the Chancellor had taken swift action to protect jobs and keep money in people's pockets. However, Welsh Labour has said it was a threadbare statement from the Chancellor yesterday. The Welsh Government's Finance Minister, Rebecca Evans, said it didn't do much to protect and help those people who were most struggling with the cost of living crisis here in Wales. Now, the cutting of fuel duty in particular was something that the Welsh Conservatives were particularly hoping for from yesterday's statement, and of course their prayers were answered with that 5p cut to fuel duty, which came into action at 6 o'clock last night and of course will last for the next year. Now, I headed out to have a chat to motorists yesterday to see if the cut to fuel duty will make any difference to them.
Not in the slightest, because I'm 80 and I fill up once every 6 weeks. But it's going to make a lot of difference to people with low money, because that's where we should be looking at. I do a lot of voluntary work for a charity, and if some of these politicians saw what I see about the deprived circumstances that these people are in, perhaps then they do something about it. He's not giving away anything, which is a typical Tory attitude, and I grew up in a Tory background. And the only politician you can trust are the ones that are buried.
Not a great deal of difference to us because we don't use the car a lot. You know, it's not as if you have to go to work every day, etc. So no, it's not going to make a great deal of difference, really.
Well, no, I don't think it will make that much difference. Everything is going up in price. Whatever you buy is increased in price, isn't it?
So the RAC say that the average car, with the new announcement, it's going to mean that the price of filling it up is going to go down by about £3.30. Is that going to mean a lot to you?
No, I don't think it will. No, I don't think it will. It's just gone up way beyond, isn't it? And so is the price of food and everything, and gas and electric. My electric bill this year was £100 more than it was the last time. It's going beyond, isn't it? It's ridiculous.
What do you think about the cost of fuel at the moment?
It's ridiculously high, and people are making a profit on it. Unnecessarily, I think.
The government cutting it slightly,
Yes.
fuel duty, is that going to make any difference to you?
It will, of course it will, yes. But I think it should be given a cut on other things rather so that other people can benefit. Because everybody is going to benefit now, people that don't really need it. And I'm with him 100% on that one, no.
So to discuss people here in Wales in relation to the statement more specifically, people here will benefit, of course, from that cut to fuel duty, the national insurance threshold rise, and of course that cut to the basic rate of income tax, which is said to affect about 1.26 million people here in Wales. However, that household support fund, which the Chancellor announced yesterday, won't benefit people here in Wales at all, because it's an England-only scheme, but it will mean that £27 million will be available to the Welsh Government to help with that cost of living crisis. We don't yet know specifically how that money is going to be spent.
Lily, leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. And with the time, it's 6:15. Here are the latest headlines.
Challenging and uncertain times lie ahead for the country. That's according to the Chancellor after forecasters predict the biggest fall in living standards on record. Well, after his spring statement, Rishi Sunak said he will support hardworking families, but Labour says he's done nothing to tackle the cost of living crisis.
Britain is sending 6,000 more missiles to Ukraine. The Prime Minister says the UK is providing anti-tank and high-explosive weaponry to keep the flame of freedom alive, in his words.
The chief executive of P&O Ferries will be quizzed by MPs later over the sacking of nearly 800 workers without notice. Peter Hebblethwaite will appear in front of the Transport and Business Committees, and this is as the Prime Minister says the company had broken the law and the government will be taking action.
We'll have another headline update for you at 1:30. And just to say that P&O ferry situation, also in about half an hour's time, we're going to be looking at how it is affecting Northern Ireland, obviously cut off from mainland Britain, relying on those ferry services, and we'll be reporting from Larne.
Now, Prime Minister Boris Johnson will set out a new support package for Ukrainian forces, including 6,000 more missiles and anti-tank weaponry, when he meets with NATO leaders in Brussels today for an emergency summit.
Meanwhile, the Ukraine president is calling for global protests to mark a month off the war.
Show your standing. Come from your offices, your homes, your schools and universities. Come in the name of peace. Come with Ukrainian symbols to support Ukraine, to support freedom, to support life.
So Zelensky calling people to protest there. His words come as Russian forces continue to bomb cities, including Kyiv and Kharkiv. So let's cross now to Western Ukraine for an update from Olesia Titarenko, who's deputy news editor at the Ukrainian national broadcaster Suspiln. A very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us. Look, first of all, give us an update on what you made of Zelensky's address there. And we've got this emergency NATO summit happening, and for the first time, President Biden over in Europe since the war broke out.
Thank you for having me, and also for your support, especially the UK support. I can give you some update on situation and what's going on in Ukraine this month. In almost every region of Ukraine, we are living from air raid siren to air raid siren. On average, Ukrainians have to go down to the bomb shelters 4 times per day or night. That's the minimum. And if we are talking about Kyiv and the most war-damaged regions, people live in bomb shelters there and have to go there almost every 2 hours. So I think that the words of Volodymyr Zelensky and his statements, remark, and the way he describes in some way this situation. And moreover, yesterday, Ukrainian Center for Countering Disinformation warned us about possible chemical attack. And in the 21st century, and developed countries, well-developed countries, it's unbelievable, unimaginable situation. And we have to deal with it. If we are talking about Western Ukraine, in some countries and even in Ukraine, it was considered as a safe haven, but it's no longer the case, because Ukraine is under all the territory is under fire. For example, if we are talking about Zakarpattia region, which was considered as the safest one, and which shares borders with Hungary, Slovakia, and Romania, there a couple of days ago, a group of Russian saboteurs infiltration group has been detected and detained. Here, as you also know, in Western Ukraine and also in Lviv, where it's like a point of meeting for all the groups who want to leave Ukraine and emigrate. In Lviv, missile attack on the International Center for Peacekeeping and Security, and also an attack on aircraft repair plant took place. So it's not safe here as it's considered to be. But I have also good news update on Kiev. As you also may know, apartment buildings, residential complexes, and shopping centers are being constantly targeted and destroyed by Russian forces. But yesterday, the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine informed that Ukrainian forces have pushed Russian army back to about 55 kilometers east and northeast from Kiev, which is quite good.
Alicia, that's tactically what is going on. Practically, you've got to live in those conditions. Could you just tell me personally what it is like having to cope in war conditions and trying to lead a life? How badly are you affected?
Yeah, it's difficult to leave this situation as a journalist, as a person, because simultaneously you have to worry about your family. Mine, for example, lives close to the Kharkiv region, which is affected. Also, as a journalist, I need to remain unbiased. I need to remain journalist. And of course, it's difficult. And when we are talking about working under these conditions, for example, when we started to do it, when we relocated to Western Ukraine, we had to interrupt our television marathon and go to the bomb shelters. And as I said, it happened like 4 or 5 times per day. So it's a huge stress we are going through. But now I would say that we cope with it, we adapted, and good news for Western Ukraine. Yesterday we had no air raid alerts, and now you can see shining brightly, and I can even work from outside talking to you.
Well, we must end on a note of optimism there then, Alicia Titarenko. Really good to get that update from you. Stay safe, and thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. 22 minutes past 6. Good morning to you. Coming up, it's a month since the war actually began. We're going to be meeting the political scientist who's been working with our team behind the scenes. Okay, all that to come after the weather picture, and hopefully it's going to be a good day ahead everywhere here.
Good morning, I'm Alex Deakin with your latest weather update from the Met Office. Plenty more sunshine to come today. It's a little chilly out there first thing. We do have a little bit of mist and fog around in places too, but generally high pressure is bringing more sunny skies, not just for today, but for the next several days. A weak weather front is drifting close to the northwest, so it is going to be a cloudier day for parts of Northern Ireland, western Scotland. May even be 1 or 2 showers here as well. And through the day, some cloud will bubble up to maybe provide the odd isolated shower over northern England and northeast Scotland. Mist and fog around this morning, but it is steadily clearing. It certainly should be gone by midday. And then plenty of sunny spells lifting those temperatures. After that chilly start, we should peak this afternoon well above average for the time of year, 15, 16, 17, maybe 18, 19. Possibly even 20 degrees once more in 1 or 2 locations. Any of these isolated showers over northern England, northeast Scotland, they should fade away through this evening. And once they're gone, it's dry nights. And again, most places having long, clear spells. The nights are still long enough for that to turn things pretty cold. So temperatures close to freezing once more as we start Friday morning. Certainly rural areas, there will be a touch of frost. Again, some mist and fog patches are likely here and there. And on Friday, we could see a bit more of that mist and low cloud around the coast of Northern Ireland, southwest Scotland. But again, for the vast majority, Friday is another blue sky day. We will see some thickening cloud over the Northern Isles, maybe a little bit of rain at times on Friday for Shetlands, and that'll suppress the temperatures here, but elsewhere again, look at those temperatures jumping up after a cold start to widely into the mid to high teens by Friday afternoon. Friday evening, again, temperatures drop away, but with this area of high pressure moving in on Friday and sticking around through Saturday and Sunday, it means, yes, chilly nights, but plenty more warm, sunny spells by day. Goodbye.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back at 6:26. Believe it or not, it has been 1 month today since Russia invaded. And over the last few weeks, we've been speaking to so many people fleeing the war, whether they're in Poland, Romania, Slovakia or Hungary.
Helping to do that was Mykola, who's a Ukrainian political scientist who spent time with our reporters, Paul Hawkins and Rosie Wright, as they reported from the border.
Well, alongside translating for us, he's been helping to send aid to refugees, he's been connecting journalists, supporting his own family, and he got engaged and has managed to rebuild a life outside of Ukraine. Our news reporter, Rosie Wright, has his story.
One of my friends, he just sent me the video last Sunday, what is going on and happened in Kyiv. It was a missile attack and shooting just near my home. I bought this flat. I collect money for whole of my life to build one room flat on the first floor in a small Soviet Union home. Like, I remember this night when this war started. I was awake at 4:30 and see my sisters tried to contact me to say me they need to go to Poland because it's crazy. They started shooting missiles even to Korostin in my city. Thankfully, thanks for French volunteers, Tatiana. She helped me to find a place in France, and my family now is safe. And 14 members of my family they moved to France.
Do you know what's been really amazing over the last just like 10 days or so is that you're a man of real logistics. So not just helping us with all the different languages that you speak, but connecting different journalists with other stories, humanitarian aid with people.
Yeah, suddenly I met two volunteers from Spain. They tried to find someone who speaks English or Spanish. But I had some experience. I speak Spanish, and I tried to speak with them. He said that they have some medical treatment, even insulin. But for now, for Ukraine, it's so important. And I say we can collect and send directly to Ukraine in 1 hour. And my friend Alex, his volunteer, he comes to take everything and send. Now everything is on safe in the hospital. And I'm thankfully gracias for these volunteers. It's great guys.
People have got really different ideas, predictions about how this is going to run. What do you think is going to happen next?
Yeah, we will defend our country. We will stay safe with Ukrainian spirit. Maybe in the next few years it can be the real war with Russia, but we don't know it yet.
What do you think will stop Putin?
Nothing stop him. He's crazy. He's real. He doesn't care about anything, about the whole nations of Russia, about he cares just about his ego, about his imperial ambitions. That's it.
What a fascinating story.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I just thought that was really amazing. The way war really affects people. They really reevaluate their lives, appreciate those around them. You know, getting engaged in the middle of all of this is probably actually a really natural response to it all. You want to tell the people you love that you want to be with them forever. So it's a lovely story.
You've got a tale to tell at GB News. Get in touch with the time at 6:30. We will take a look through today's newspapers. Dawn Neeson, David Wooding, after this short break.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate.
From all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
Make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel.
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
That you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Very good morning to you. Thursday morning. Latest headlines are these on GB News Breakfast.
Challenging and uncertain times lie ahead for the country. That's according to the Chancellor, after forecasters have predicted the biggest fall in living standards on record. Well, after his spring statement, Rishi Sunak said he will support hard-working families, but Labour says he's done nothing to tackle the cost of living crisis.
President of Ukraine says today's NATO summit will show who is Ukraine's friend and who has sold out and betrayed his country. Speaking ahead of the meeting, President Zelensky called on the world to mark 1 month since the start of the Russian invasion.
Show your standing. Come from your offices, your homes, your schools and universities. Come in the name of peace. Come with Ukrainian symbols to support Ukraine, to support freedom, to support life.
The chief executive of P&O Ferries will be quizzed by MPs later over the sacking of nearly 800 workers without notice. Peter Hebblethwaite will appear in front of the Transport and Business Committees. This is as the Prime Minister says the company had broken the law and the government will be taking action.
Duke of Cambridge has expressed his profound sorrow over slavery and recognised Jamaica's pain. After days of protest, Prince William addressed the issue during his speech in the country, saying it was abhorrent.
The Queen is to feature on the cover of British Vogue for the first time in a special issue celebrating her Platinum Jubilee. The April issue will showcase the 95-year-old monarch in the early years of her 70-year reign.
Just to say, after 8 o'clock, we're going to be speaking to the former Deputy Chief of MI6. But right now it's time to go through the papers on this Thursday. All the front pages focusing on the Chancellor's budget. And joining us to discuss this, journalist Dawn Neeson and political editor of The Sun on Sunday, David Wooding, with this. David, you're going with the front page of the Mirror, and it says, "Thanks for nothing, Sunak's sickener." They're not far wrong, are they?
Well, it's the spring statement yesterday, as your viewers will know, and a little bit of promise of jam tomorrow in the 1p interest, 1p income tax rate cut, but we won't get that till 2024. The rest of it was a bit of thinly spread butter in the energy, the petrol fuel duty cut for 5p, which will be about £3.5 off the cost of filling up your car. But the Mirror honing on the thing which struck me most of all was that there's going to be nothing to help cut those energy bills, which is the biggest cause of the cost of living crisis, apart from inflation. Energy bills set to soar by up to £1,300 a year for many people, and there is nothing being done on that.
Well, I suppose the Chancellor or the Treasury would say, look, we actually have already coughed up £9 billion on this earlier. You know, we stepped out ahead of the spring statement. We were doing this loan to energy companies, we're sorting out council tax. But again, that was before we're seeing skyrocketing inflation. So is the argument, would you say, in reply to that he should have addressed it again?
Well, I mean, he's got a headroom of about 40 to 50 billion pounds here, and in fact, he didn't really spend a lot of money in helping the cost of living crisis. Now, he believes that things are going to change. We've got an unpredictable situation. We've got the war in Ukraine, and he may need to do more in the autumn statement, in the autumn budget, which is where he's going to do a lot of work, including tax cuts again, we expect. But I suspect he'll have to do something more. There'll have to be some emergency action before then.
I just think there's just people who are disenfranchised, people who are on benefits, people who are at the lower earning scale. Yes, you can say, you know, you can earn £12,500 before you pay any income tax. But I think those people are really going to feel cut adrift.
I mean, there's a lot of people being left out of this. I mean, something like 30 million people will benefit from raising the threshold on national insurance contributions. There'll be people under about £35,000 to £36,000. But those on universal credit, pensioners, they won't receive anything. And the Institute for Public Policy Research came out with a report last night which said that the 20% poorest will be £120 worse off, and the 20% richest will be £480 worse off.
Yeah, your take, Dawn, is from the front page of the Express, the forgotten millions, and they say, what about us?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not good reading for Rishi and Boris this morning, is it? Every single newspaper, including the Express, which is normally a huge cheerleader for Boris Johnson in particular, have complained about this the spring statement. It's not good. The Mirror, the Express, knowing its readership, is talking about pensioners, and you know, pensioners really are getting no help whatsoever. They're not going to benefit from anything, and I think the one thing that a lot of pensioners would like to see is help with their heating bills, and you know, the relief on green technology. I mean, how many pensioners, Eamonn and Isabel, are even thinking, oh right, I'm going to save money by installing some solar panels? I'm sorry, my mum's 81. She's not worried about solar panels. She's worried about being able to switch her fire on, is what she needs help with at the moment. And she's not getting that. I think for pensioners in particular, it's very right of the Express to pull them out of this one. It is like the cost of heating and eating. I know it's become a cliche, but it's so important. And I feel that they are not getting any help whatsoever. I mean, if he'd have got rid of the green levies in our energy bills, I mean, for some energy bills, they're 25%.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, and the VAT on that, 5%. That would have been an enormous help for, you know, poorer people and pensioners.
You know what I think? Sorry, I'm just generally about this. You look, we've no money for this, we've no money for that, right? You know, fair enough. Do you not think we spend a load of money on a lot of crud, really? That there are too many fringe crusades, and these politicians, which they don't do, they'd be better up saying, look, you expect us to pay for this cause, that cause, whatever. What we're going to do is, what's important to you? Fuel crisis is important to you, energy crisis is important to you, cost of living crisis is important to you. Right, we're going to divert since we're not going to frack, we're going to divert funds everywhere else to this because this is the important thing right here, right now.
Yeah, you do feel, Eamonn, that they're not really talking to the people that count. I mean, I've got a friend who's a builder coming round today, and he has to drive a typical white van, and he's, putting fuel in it now. He's getting extortionate.
Yes. The supply chain is broken for him.
But they're not listening, and it's like we went past the local garage this morning in East London, and the petrol gone up 5p overnight, and I'm thinking, no, it's meant to be going down. You've got that wrong. Yeah. It's gone up 5p overnight, and even the cut they've given us, it's only taking it back to the price it was a couple of weeks ago in any case.
The other thing that annoys me is that they announce, but we're going to cut income tax in 2 years from now.
Oh, when there's an election coming up.
Yeah, that's funny.
Do you not think that shoots him in the foot a bit? Because it is so obviously pandering for votes.
Well, of course, if he doesn't cut taxes, things could change, as he keeps telling us. It's unpredictable. If he doesn't cut taxes in 2 years' time, he'll get pilloried.
But why tell us now he's going to do that?
Well, exactly. It's political. This is what the FT is going on when they're talking about the pre-election tax cuts. He is under immense pressure from the Conservative backbenchers to cut taxes and show he's a tax-cutting councillor. The truth is, he's raised taxes more than any other chancellor since 1949, the Attlee government. We now spend 36.3% tax burden in this country, which it was 33% in 2019-20. So it's going up, and he keeps telling us he's a tax-cutting councillor.
But to be fair, I mean, we have just had a pandemic, and obviously we're servicing this huge debt, having kept people's jobs going with furlough, and now we have this huge energy crisis, which isn't of his making. So I do feel bad for him. That I saw him over the weekend being shown these graphs which said, "Look at you, look how much more you're spending," and he was like, "Yeah, but which of those chancellors had to deal with two of these?" things.
Absolutely right, Isabel. He has, in fairness, been dealt a bad hand. We had the £400 billion spent on the pandemic, and he did the right thing there. He did what was right to protect us all. But now,
you just point out
servicing
that 11.8 billion was lost in fraud somewhere along the line. We could do with a bit of that back.
Yeah. That would pay for the social care.
Servicing that debt cost us £83 billion, which is 4 times what it was last year. So his hands are a little bit tied. But nevertheless, he's trying to show that he's a tax-cutting chancellor. But the problem with that is he's a hostage to fortune now if he doesn't deliver in 2 years. And where is that, like you rightly say, Eamonn, where is that giveaway now? Because he's already given it away.
I'll tell you where it is. It's in the foreign aid budget. A lot of people will be saying, the time comes where you've got to say, you've got needy, you've got people in deprivation here, you've got people who are choosing between heating and eating. That's a good place for a budget of that sort of magnitude.
Well, since we're going into sort of overseas territory, should we turn our attention to the situation in Ukraine, Dawn? This is on the front of the Times, and this is talking about the sort of aid that we do send overseas, 6,000 missiles and war funds for Ukraine.
This is what I can't quite get my head around. There's money for some things when we need to find it. Now, of course, what's going on in the Ukraine is around us, and we need to do as much as we can. But, at the spring statement, there's no increase, no extra money for defence. Now, we've cut our defence budget constantly for 40 years. It's now probably the lowest it's ever been. I mean, our armed forces are down to the smallest they've ever been. But suddenly, this story, Prime Minister was promised today to rush a further 6,000 missiles to Ukraine and provide a significant increase in funding. New contribution will include 25 million for Ukraine to pay its troops and for supplies, and 4.1 million for the BBC World Service to tackle disinformation and Russia in Ukraine, which is fine. I agree with all of these things. But where's that money coming from?
Well, I guess it's what they call these war chests, isn't it, where they squirrel money away for these kinds of emergencies.
I think the money's been squirreled. I think it's gone. I think it's squirreled.
I'm not quite sure where it's been squirreled, don't you?
Yeah.
I mean, what about having a pension or war chest so we can help the real people in this country that are really suffering?
Right. We go to the Sun. David, and here's a lot of nonsense as well. Front page, the Euros bid in 2028. Yesterday we heard the only bidder was the UK and Ireland for this. Now Turkey's got involved and Russia is in here. Why are they even looking at the Russian bid?
Well, Russia's been banned, as you know, from by FIFA and UEFA.
But we'll sit down and we'll delegate and we'll all waste time and money assessing if Russia should host this championship in, 6 years' time?
Yes. I think we should just tell them to go packing.
Oh, show us the headline. It's so good.
Putin in the boot.
Putin the booting. Putin the booting. A bit higher for us, David.
Good football pun. In that story, it suggests that Putin is clearly taking the mickey here. He's doing it to try and goad us, and one Conservative MP, Andrew Bridgen, is quoted in there as saying it confirms what we already feared, that Putin has clearly lost his marbles.
Yeah, scary thought.
The thing that just gets me is why the football authorities even consider it. Just, hello, it's the Russian Football Federation here. Goodbye.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah. They're very slow, aren't they, to do the right thing in football? It always takes a bit of public pressure.
They had to think about it a bit, didn't they?
How much money would that be?
Yeah. Imagine if they actually said, we're going to award it to Russia. Imagine.
Well,
strange
you know what?
happened.
With UEFA and FIFA, one wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, exactly.
We're having the World Cup. Let's not forget.
Possible.
Yeah.
The World Cup this year is being held in Qatar, right in the middle of a really
great human rights record they've got.
Exactly. Interesting. Look, I really want
football, it's always money.
Money. Well,
and,
so many parts of
Right.
Dawn, can we finish on this? I really want to squeeze the story in, and it happened, quite late for some of the papers. William and Kate, obviously, on this royal tour, and Prince William, going further really than we've had them go before, but stopping short of a full apology for
Absolutely,
slavery.
this is. I mean, it's a tour that's going exceptionally well, and doesn't Kate look gorgeous? I have to say that as a girl, she does look gorgeous. But last night, he acknowledged that Britain's dark history of the vile slave trading has stained its reputation in Jamaica. Jamaica want their independence, and they met the Jamaican Prime Minister, who urged William to address unresolved issues. We're talking repatriation, money back for what happened in the slave trade, etc., etc. And protesters have been demanding an apology at the British High Commission in Jamaica. However, when William and Kate themselves are out and about, the crowd love them. I mean, it's been lovely to see. I mean, Kate in particular is playing a blinder here. We love you, we love you. So there's and they walk around Trench Town and the Bob Marley Museum and everything yesterday. So it's a shame that it is being overshadowed by the political side of things. But I mean, obviously there are issues that need addressing. And William said, Jamaica is a very proud country, and we need to fulfil our debt to you in a way. I mean, what he actually means by that is we will find out eventually. But I mean, they're doing a very good job, and some Caribbean islands have already got their independence, and Jamaica wants to go the same way. But and Kate and William are endlessly diplomatic, aren't they? It's like, well, can you apologise for slavery now? And it's like, yes, and we'll give a nice speech, and then it's like
we'll express our regret and our sorrow, but we won't say sorry.
Yes, exactly.
Well.
Dawn, David, thank you both very much indeed. They'll be back in 45 minutes' time. If you're just waking up, let's bring you the latest news headlines. Challenging and uncertain times lie ahead for the country, according to the Chancellor, after forecasters predict the biggest fall in living standards on record. After his spring statement, Rishi Sunak said he will support hard-working families, but Labour says he's done nothing to tackle the cost of living crisis.
Meanwhile, Britain's sending 6,000 more missiles to Ukraine. The Prime Minister says the UK is providing anti-tank and high-explosive weaponry to keep the flame of freedom alive.
The Chief Executive of P&O Ferries will be quizzed by MPs later over the sacking of nearly 800 workers without notice. His name's Peter Hebblethwaite. He will appear in front of the Transport and Business Committees as the Prime Minister says that the company had broken the law and the government will be taking action. David and Dawn, just is a phrase that pops up, peddled by politicians of all parties and sucked up by journalists of all stations. and they talk about hard-working families. Are you hard-working?
Really hard.
I think I'm hard-working.
5 o'clock this morning.
You hard-working?
I think everybody would describe themselves as hardworking.
Well,
Patronising. Well, I think if they're actually saying poor people, people who are hard up, people who are not as fortunate, then say what you mean.
Yeah.
But this insult to people who may be middle class, you're not hardworking.
Wow.
You get your money easy, you do.
Yeah.
It's absolutely disgusting. And actually, in our newsroom, take it out of any government press releases. That's what I would say from here on. We're all hardworking. That's the way it is. People hardworking on board the P&O ships as well. And the crisis has left many of these boats in dock. Now, we're going to go to Larne in Northern Ireland, which is a big port and a significant route for goods travelling back and forwards between Ireland and the UK.
And of course, with backlogs in Scottish ports, retailers there are really worried about the possible shortages. And although there is now help from a rival company, we're asking, will it be enough? Well, GBNews' Northern Ireland reporter Dougie Beattie has been finding out.
Northern Ireland is an island economy inside an island economy, and it depends on regular links with the rest of the UK. P&O's action has left a backlog of goods in Scotland and puts pressure on the retail sector. Glenn Roberts of Retail NI says this is the last thing that business here needs.
I know that there certainly is a backlog. It's impossible to put a figure on just how much. This is the last thing I think the business community in Northern Ireland need to see is one of our major ports, a question mark put on it. So the government need to act very swiftly in this. We need to see an arrangement that will work and give that long-term certainty and stability to the business community.
The public have been warned not to panic buy, but Northern Ireland exports nearly 20% of the UK's food, and it's important that a long-term answer is found. The road you see behind me is one of Northern Ireland's main arterial routes. It's the Larne Highway. It's how we move our goods in and out of the UK. Normally it would be full of HGVs and other vehicles. And right now, it looks like a scene from 2 years ago when lockdown began. Belfast Port has now taken up the slack, and the rival operator Stena has put on an additional boat. The flow through in the port is up because of problems around checks in Dublin, and the Agricultural Minister Edwin Poots explains why it's harder to travel in and out of the Republic.
It's much harder to bring goods in to Dublin. There's a far higher level of checks, so there obviously isn't the grace periods that exist that have been negotiated for the Northern Ireland goods, and therefore it is much more difficult to import into Dublin. In fact, normally about 20% of southern traffic is coming through Northern Ireland because some of the southern companies are using Northern Ireland as a route to get in because of the grace periods.
The freight problems for the short term is solved, but could other ports in the UK face similar problems?
Well, it would appear that in the short channel routes are between UK and the rest of Europe that there is less pressure at this time of the year, and therefore those stocks are being maintained. So whilst we can continue doing what we're doing, that's okay. Stena do require this boat to go back over to the Baltic states sometime in April. So this isn't a long-term solution, but they are stepping into the breach and ensuring that Northern Ireland is fed and supplied whilst we have this P&O crisis.
Dougie Beattie, GB News, County Antrim.
Well, fittingly, the new film Belfast has been putting Northern Ireland back in the spotlight this year. It's been nominated for 7 Oscars, including Best Picture.
OK, so the Oscars are going to happen on Sunday. What else can you expect to see and hear? Let's go to showbiz reporter Kinsey Schofield, live from LA now to preview what's going to happen. Kinsey, what's all the talk? Where's the excitement coming from? What's the film everybody wants to see?
Well, I mean, obviously Belfast everybody loves Belfast. It's so charming and enchanting, and I think that no one really expected it. But I expect a lot of change for this year's Oscars, because last year's was considered a fail. Only 10 million people watched it. The year before, over 23 million people watched it, but that was considered a fail. They've added a fan favorite category so that people could vote for movies like Spider-Man, and some of those movies that actually got butts in seats, right? Not the artsy ones you typically see at these award ceremonies. They've really pumped up the stars. They wanted only A-listers there this year, and I don't know if you've seen the headlines, but there was a little bit of scandal because they excluded Rachel Zegler, who is the lead in West Side Story. She did not have a seat at the Oscars. She talked about it on her Instagram. There was so much fan outrage that the Oscars actually had to make a position for her as a presenter, so she's going to be there. But they are really trying to step it up and make sure that the Oscars are something that people want to watch and engage with this year.
Going to get the message that people don't want to be lectured to and just full of wokeism, including the films themselves. It's very, very hard. Actually, a film that I omitted to see and I really wanted to see was West Side Story. Have you seen it, Kinsey?
I have. I loved it. It's so cute. I loved the original, so obviously I'm going to go into this one a little skeptical, but I really did think that they did a great job with it. And Anita, who I played when I was in college, I thought she was excellent, and I look forward to seeing her. I think she's going to win.
It's quite interesting, West Side Story, because it's the first time I think a remake has been up for as many nominations at the Oscars. So there was some sort of headline on West Side Story on that. I just want to ask you, to quote you back, you were saying, you know, the big movies that got butts back on seats. Spider-Man's got to be up there, right?
Oh, absolutely. But what's so funny is the way that they have positioned this new category, this fan favorite category. You're allowed to vote 20 times a day. So it's actually being hijacked by fans of the movie Cinderella on Amazon Prime and Johnny Depp fans. And I'm actually spacing on the movie. I'm horrified. I'm sorry. But people are actually gathering together in these little units online and voting so many times that it's not necessarily Spider-Man, which actually got butts in seats. It's these other movies that just have really aggressive fan bases online.
Oh, how interesting.
I'm just realising there's so few films I've actually seen. I have seen Belfast. I was at the premiere of that in Belfast, but outside that, I can't think.
Well, and Dame Judi Dench, if she wins for that, she'll be the oldest actress to win an Oscar. Do you think she'll get it?
I really hope she will. I would love to see that. I would love to see that because it's like you said, how many women in Hollywood are celebrated for aging? It's almost, you know, like the older you get in Hollywood, the faster they push you out, the more aggressive they are to push you out. So to see her win an Oscar would be such a celebration for the industry, and it would teach young girls that it's okay to grow older, and you don't have to look a certain way, and it's about your talent and your skill. So my God, I would love to see that.
But there are other stars in that film. The young lad Jude, who plays Kenneth Branagh at 10 years of age, absolutely superb. Jamie Dornan,
so good.
Jamie Dornan's so good in it. The woman who plays his wife, so good. You see, in any other country, I would now be protesting. I'd be full of wokeism and walk out that an English actress is playing a Northern Irish woman with an accent that's a bit dodgy. You know, because this is the nonsense. You look at it and you say, but she's an actress. That's what she does, so we're sort of okay with it. But I could see if that applied to other countries, there would be walkouts and protests.
Well, and she's absolutely perfect, isn't she? I also love her as Claire Fraser in Outlander. Outlander is back, people. So I would watch her, you know, read the phone book if we're going to be honest.
Kinsey, have you ever been to Belfast?
Not yet, but I do want to visit, specifically after watching this movie. I thought it was just so charming, and I got into the history, and I thought that is someplace that I need to put on my bucket list.
I could be your tour guide.
Oh, really? Well, I'm going to take you up on that.
You could do that. Lovely talking to you. Listen, we're going to talk to you again on
Monday morning.
The morning after the night before.
All right. Well, it's also going to be my birthday, so come prepared with some happy wishes.
Oh, thank you.
Speaking
Maybe you could
of
dress
women
up in
aging
your
in
Oscars
Hollywood.
outfit. Don't be silly. Don't be silly. You're rocking it. We'll see you Monday, Kinsey. Thank you.
Good talking to you. Thank you very much indeed.
Right, it's 2 minutes to 7. Stay with us. We'll have more for you after this short break.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Britain faces the biggest hit to living standards since the days of rationing after the Chancellor delivered his spring statement.
Hello, a very good morning to you. 7 o'clock is the time. This is Breakfast in GB News with Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel Webster. It is Thursday, the 24th of March.
We're live across the whole of the UK on TV, on radio, as well as online. And this is what's leading the news this morning.
The Chancellor has used his spring statement to show off what he calls the biggest package of tax cuts in a quarter of a century. But critics say the measures will do nothing to help those hit hardest by the cost of living crisis.
The Prime Minister will tell the NATO summit in Brussels today that the war in Ukraine is entering a new phase of aggression and humanitarian catastrophe. That's as he announces the UK will double the number of missiles it sends to the war-torn country.
Also, this week is Shakespeare Week for school children across England, but are his works relevant? Sexist even. We'll be hearing from a teacher who says they are indeed, and says schools should ditch the bard from the syllabus.
You can join in any of our discussions by emailing gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at GBNews.
You'd probably say yes, you should.
Why shouldn't you? Oh, for goodness
Shakespeare
sake.
at primary school. What is the relevance? What is the point?
Look, just because you're not into literature.
Oh, I am into
you like Shakespeare.
I don't like Shakespeare. I think Shakespeare's
Well,
a
that's so
complete
you
waste
don't
of
think it should
time.
be in secondary
I think it
school?
should be an option. It should be an option to do. I did get an A in my English literature A level, though,
Yeah.
have to be said. To be or not to be. I did play Henry V and Henry IV as well.
So you've had an appreciation of it.
No, I don't. I don't. It doesn't make sense. It's not even written in English, is it?
Well,
what do you think? At GB News, get in touch. GBviews@GB News. Roll the sting. Let's not roll the sting. So let's just segue into this seamlessly.
Yes, so our top story this morning. The Chancellor used his spring statement in the House of Commons yesterday to reveal what he called the biggest package of tax cuts in 25 years. But it comes amid warnings that Britain could be facing its biggest dip in living standards since the age of rationing.
Well, responding to the highest inflation in years, Rishi Sunak announced a 5p a litre cut in fuel duty and a £3,000 increase in the threshold for national insurance contributions.
So his cut to fuel duty, which came into effect last night and is a response to those skyrocketing costs due to the war in Ukraine, takes prices just back to the level they were a week ago.
The most surprising announcement came in the form of a penny cut to income tax, not now, but in 2 years' time, which will bring it to 19p when it comes into force in April 2024, just ahead of the likely next general election.
However, the statement faced criticism from many groups hit hardest by the ongoing cost of living crisis for failing to safeguard the most vulnerable in society, from pensioners to those dependent on benefits.
The Shadow Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, called the statement misguided and warned families and businesses will now endure significant hardship.
Well, the Office of Budget Responsibility said in the wake of the statement that living standards would still fall 2%. That is the steepest drop since records began in the 1950s.
They also forecast that inflation would hit 8.7 later this year, massively outstripping wage growth.
Well, for more now, let's talk to economist Alfie Sterling. A very good morning to you, Alfie. The dust is beginning to settle. What's your overall impression of the statement yesterday?
Yeah, good morning. Overall, I think it's quite astonishing. We've got the biggest squeeze in living standards, as you've already mentioned, in a generation. So, this exceeds the 1970s. It exceeds the 1990s recession. It's worse than the financial crisis and the pandemic. This is a really significant year ahead, a really painful year ahead. And against that backdrop, we essentially had a Chancellor who chose to do nothing to support the incomes of the very poorest. In fact, because inflation is now racing ahead to well above 7% next year, that's the latest forecast, and because our income safety net is uprated by inflation as it was in the previous September, which is about 3%, we're actually seeing welfare get cut by £11 billion in real terms in the midst of this huge squeeze in living standards.
Yeah, I mean, the government would say they're trying to make this a country where it pays to work and it's a traditional sort of conservative value, I suppose, isn't it, to try and wean people off those benefits. But many people would argue against that, given the backdrop of this cost of living crisis and, as you say, surging inflation.
Well, 3 points, I think. The first is that many of the people claiming these income support measures are in work. I'm talking about tax credits, the in-work element of universal credit, housing benefit. These are all payments that support people in work precisely because wages don't pay enough. Actually, there's a lot of sound economic theory that says if you can pay an income safety net that's strong enough, it will actually incentivize better quality work. So you begin to see employers to compete in terms of pay and begin to make sure they're offering salaries that are actually fit to live on. But the third point is that if you can boost incomes now, what you're also doing is you're boosting spending. And it's spending in the couple of years ahead, which is in real jeopardy. And if it falls back, that's what could tip us back into recession. And recessions cost jobs. They cost jobs right across the spectrum because people's spending has dried up and there aren't people to buy the goods and services. So in all respects, I think, if you're not supporting living standards now, you're storing up a lot of pain for the future, both incomes and jobs.
Alfie, you're an economist. You know what you're talking about there, but the Treasury will have loads and loads of people like you in there giving advice. And we hear things, a lot of this is just smoke and mirrors, and a lot of it is political. And we hear the Chancellor saying this is the biggest package of tax cuts in 25 years. Now, nobody feels it's like that. Is he telling porkies? Is he twisting the truth? Or is it correct?
Well, as ever, it is a lot of smoke and mirrors. So, look, it is true in the sense that if you take the isolated measures that were announced yesterday, they are really large. They're one of the largest we've seen in a decade or more. But where the smoke comes in is that we've actually seen very large tax increases over the past few years, both in terms of active policy decisions, whether that's the social care levy, changing corporation tax, but also actually the economy has become more tax rich. We've seen that for a given level of GDP, the share of tax has risen, and that's because of things like people moving from self-employment into employment because of the effects of the pandemic and people being worried now about not having the same sorts of protections in their work. So the economy has become more tax rich, and that means overall, actually, we've got a much larger share of tax for GDP than we had before Sunak came into office.
So that's interesting from a man that says he's a tax-cutting chancellor.
And just lastly, you were hinting that this could tip us into recession a moment ago, but of course other people are suggesting that actually what he's doing is saving it all up, the big announcements for the autumn. So do you think that he could steer us away from that come the budget?
Perhaps for the autumn, perhaps for the next general election. He's certainly got a lot of headroom that he can use, partly because of the point I was making earlier about this tax richness in the economy. There's a lot of headroom for him to spend. I think that if he does wait until the autumn, let alone until near the general election, he will have a serious problem on his hands. And that's because people will have a serious problem on their hands in terms of this income and living standards squeeze. It's quite possible that the next 6 months will completely race ahead of this chancellor in a similar way to how the pandemic did in the early weeks and months. You'll remember that he responded to COVID initially in his March-Spring 2020 statement by simply bringing forward sick pay from 3 days to 1 day. And it wasn't until weeks later he had to then lurch into a whole furlough scheme and self-employed income protection scheme. It is entirely possible we see something happen again here with this living standards crisis racing ahead of the announcement we had yesterday.
OK, really good talking to you. Alfie Sterling from the New Economics Foundation. He's Director of Research and Chief Economist there. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, as we've heard, the Chancellor, thank you. As we've been hearing, the Chancellor's cut 5 pence per litre to help motorists, but with those prices already really high, and as Dawn Neeson was saying in the pay-per view last night, they actually went up 5 pence overnight. Yeah. Anyway, let's find out if it's making any difference. Lily Hewitson is in Cardiff for us this morning. What's the mood there?
Yes, good morning, Eamonn and Isabel. There's certainly a very divided reaction to the Chancellor's spring statement from people and politicians here in Wales. Now, it was very much welcomed by the Welsh Tories, ministers and members of the Senedd. I had a chat to the leader of the Welsh Conservatives yesterday, Andrew R.T. Davies, who said that the Chancellor had taken swift action to protect people's jobs, grow the economy and keep money in people's pockets. However, Mr Sunak's statement was ridiculed by Welsh Labour, where they branded it as threadbare. The Welsh Government's Finance Minister, Rebecca Evans, said the Chancellor had let down those people who are most struggling with the cost of living crisis. Now, the cutting of fuel duty was something that the Welsh Conservatives were really hoping for from yesterday's statement, and of course those prayers were answered with the cutting of fuel duty by 5 pence. And of course that came into action at 6 o'clock last night and will remain in place for the next year. So after the statement, I headed out to have a chat to motorists to see if that cutting of fuel duty will make any difference to them.
Not in the slightest, because I'm 80 and I fill up once every 6 weeks. But it's going to make a lot of difference to people with low money, because that's where we should be looking at. I do a lot of voluntary work for a charity, and if some of these politicians saw what I see about the deprived circumstances that these people are in, perhaps then they do something about it.
Not a great deal of difference to us because we don't use the car a lot. You know, it's not as if you have to go to work every day, etc. So no, it's not going to make a great deal of difference, really.
Well, no, I don't think it will make that much difference. Everything is going up in price. Whatever you buy is increased in price, isn't it?
Now, to discuss people here in Wales in relation to the statement more specifically, people here will benefit from the cut to fuel duty, the national insurance threshold rise and cut to basic rate of income tax, which of course will benefit about 1.26 million people here in Wales. However, that household support fund, which the Chancellor mentioned yesterday, won't actually help vulnerable people here in Wales, as it's an England-only scheme. But that does mean that £27 million will be made available to the Welsh Government to help with the cost of living crisis. We don't yet know how that money is going to be spent.
Thank you so much. Look, lots of you getting in touch this morning via email and on Twitter. A lot of you really disappointed, it has to be said, in that statement yesterday. Daz saying the 5p off a litre is nowhere near enough of a reduction. Add a zero to that and make it 50p off a litre. Now, that would help. It's a drop in the ocean.
Yeah. This is Archie. Morning, Archie. Archie says no help from the Chancellor for pensioners. He robs pensioners of £3 or £4 a week, but he can give MPs a £40 a week rise. This government will pay for this at the next general election.
Yeah, well, Naverna disagrees. She says when the chips were down, he, the Chancellor, spent billions on keeping us afloat with furlough. We were that naive to think we wouldn't have to help repay this debt at some point. Get real.
Yeah, here's a point for those of you who heat your homes with oil as well. No mention of any help for heating with oil, especially in rural areas. This is, although I heat oil as well, and it is very expensive.
I have a friend who's an estate agent. He said all the people leaving London during lockdown to move to the country have suddenly gone, I've only got oil heating, and they're all trying to move back. It's having knock on effect.
Dear. You know, I'm an 85-year-old pensioner. Is Sunak hoping we will all die happily of cold, says Yvonne.
Well, I hope that's fun.
Clive saying this government no longer serves the people. Look, you know, those are just views we're reflecting coming in, not our views. They're the views of you, our GB News viewers, at gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet at gbnews.
OK, with the time coming up to 7:15, let's take a look at today's headlines. The government is insisting it is on the side of hard-working families after forecasters predicted the biggest fall in living standards on record. The Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, announced that 5p cut in fuel duty and an increase in the threshold at which people make contributions to their national insurance. But Labour says he's done nothing to tackle the cost of living crisis.
Britain is sending 6,000 more missiles to Ukraine as part of a new support package for the country's forces. It comes as NATO leaders are meeting in Brussels to further discuss measures exactly a month on since the start of the invasion.
Any use of chemical weapons would fundamentally change the nature of the conflict. It will be a blatant violation of international law, and it will have widespread and severe consequences.
The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge have expressed profound sorrow over slavery, which is recognised as part of Jamaica's pain. After days of protest, Prince William addressed the issue during a speech in the country, saying it was abhorrent.
And we'll have another news update for you at 5:30 in 15 minutes' time. The time now is 7:15.
Now, as the war in Ukraine continues, orphans from the country have begun arriving in the UK. But what about the tens of thousands of other children who fled the country? Well, Martin Kvernbeck is chairman of charity Salam Norway and joins us live from Lviv. Very good morning to you. Look, children are, of course, the most tragic victim in this whole crisis, aren't they? Totally innocent and unable to flee themselves. Just bring us up to date on you know, the very huge numbers of children who have gone missing from the country, whether that be on the border or from some of the cities under siege.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. So here in Ukraine, there's about 100,000 plus orphan children. Before the war, it's the highest per capita in the world. And of course, all of these children are very vulnerable, and it's complicated. Now they need to be evacuated, especially from these hot zones, as we call it, and over to more safe areas in the country, in the west, here around Lviv. In terms of how many children are kind of missing, that's a big problem. I mean, it's a war zone, and it's a little bit of a chaos. The current figures we're hearing in terms of missing children is around 10,000 that are accounted for. What kind of situation they are in, it's very difficult to say whether or not they are just, kind of lost in the system, not processed properly, and not been, the government hasn't been able to kind of follow where they have landed. In some cases, they end up in Poland, get absorbed by the Polish welfare system or child care system. In other cases, they might actually end up in human trafficking networks or with other people with malicious intent. So there's a big effort now in doing this process correctly and ensuring that the children are all accounted for, and only in certain extreme circumstances they actually need to leave the country. And if they do, that effort needs to be led and coordinated by the Ukrainian government so that the children can be accounted for and
Martin,
remain within the.
That's interesting you say that, Martin, that, in relation to the orphan specifically, it should only be in extreme circumstances that you think they should leave the country. And I suppose that's because, in the heat of war, with administrative buildings being targeted by the Russians, it is very, very hard to verify people coming in from other countries, obviously with hopefully good intentions, but hard. I mean, we've taken a 50 here in the UK, but, that's just a small fraction. And of course, all the paperwork has gone through for that. But an incredibly challenging situation for the authorities in Ukraine.
Indeed, very challenging. And I mean, the way we're working here now, we're working on the ground with Aerial Recovery Group, a highly specialized American NGO that is, ex-military forces and are able to go into these hot zones, take them out. We're working in coordination with the military state administration and another organization called New Horizons, who's working with the Child Protection Services. So we just do the inland from dangerous zone to safe zone transportation, and then the proper government here process the children. And in coordination, I guess, with other European governments, they will be able to then take the children out of the country if there is a need for that. And then that way they can account for all of them. I believe also there's a mechanism in place where they intend for the children to have some kind of status, political asylum or whatever, so they can remain Ukrainian citizens, even if they're transferred over to Poland or whichever other country. And once, hopefully, this war quiets down, they can bring those children back and they will remain Ukrainian.
Yeah, well, look, what you're doing is absolutely amazing. We know that, children are incredibly vulnerable during war, but of course the scars that they'll suffer, the emotional and mental scars, will be carried with them for the rest of their life. It is such an important job you're doing. Thank you very much for coming on and talking to us about it all.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. So that was Martin Martin Kvennebeck from the Salam charity dealing with missing children in Ukraine. Stay with us, lots more coming your way. Paul Coit is joining us in the studio here to talk about all the latest sports stories. That's after your forecast.
Good morning, I'm Alex Deakin with your latest weather update from the Met Office. Plenty more sunshine to come today. It's a little chilly out there first thing. We do have a little bit of mist and fog around in places too, but generally high pressure is bringing more sunny skies, not just for today, but for the next several days. A weak weather front is drifting close to the northwest, so it is going to be a cloudier day for parts of Northern Ireland, western Scotland. May even be one or two showers here as well. And through the day, some cloud will bubble up to maybe provide the odd isolated shower over northern England and northeast Scotland. Mist and fog around this morning, but it is steadily clearing. It certainly should be gone by midday. And then plenty of sunny spells lifting those temperatures. After that chilly start, we should peak this afternoon well above average for the time of year, 15, 16, 17, maybe 18, 19. Possibly even 20 degrees once more in one or two locations. Any of these isolated showers over northern England, northeast Scotland, they should fade away through this evening. And once they're gone, it's dry nights. And again, most places having long, clear spells. The nights are still long enough for that to turn things pretty cold. So temperatures close to freezing once more as we start Friday morning. Certainly rural areas, there will be a touch of frost. Again, some mist and fog patches are likely here and there. And on Friday, we could see a bit more of that mist and low cloud around the coast of Northern Ireland, southwest Scotland. But again, for the vast majority, Friday is another blue sky day. We will see some thickening cloud over the Northern Isles, maybe a little bit of rain at times on Friday for Shetlands, and that'll suppress the temperatures here. But elsewhere, again, look at those temperatures jumping up after a cold start to widely into the mid to high teens by Friday afternoon. Friday evening, again, temperatures drop away, but with this area of high pressure moving in on Friday and sticking around through Saturday and Sunday, it means, yes, chilly nights, but plenty more warm, sunny spells by day. Goodbye.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
£7:25. You're very welcome. This is breakfast here on GB News. Coming up just after 8 o'clock this morning, we're going to be speaking to a seamstress, a Polish seamstress, who swapped wedding gowns for war nets. She's now making these sort of camouflage nets to be used during the Ukrainian war effort. And are Shakespeare's plays still relevant in 2022? Were they ever relevant? As school pupils across England celebrate the playwright, meaning they're made to celebrate him, we'll speak to a teacher who says we should move on and teach children something else. I think, Paul Coyte's with me now, and he's going to talk about sport. You see, Shakespeare,
yeah, I'm laughing already. I know where we're going.
Optional. I mean,
yes.
Say, if you like it and you're heavily into it and that's your thing, choose it as a subject. But I don't think people should be forced to read it and decode it.
I struggled with it. It was pretty new when I was at school. You know, so it was, it was a pretty new thing, and even then I didn't really quite get it. And I'd love to pretend that, but I know plenty of people that actually go, I love it, but they don't really get it. But it's
pretending.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said, my friend. You should be a teacher.
Well, I'd try my best. You know?
Tried his best. A back page headline on the Mirror today. Paul Pogba. He said, "United is dead to me." So it seems to be Paul over for him. He slammed the manager. Another season without trophies, he says. My last 5 years have been wasted. I don't even talk about it. We agree. We agree. Goodbye, Paul. Thank you. I don't think as many people's going to mourn his past.
The main waste of time has probably been him for Manchester United. So anyway, good player, but then...
Wasted time twice in his
absolutely.
In his career.
He'll probably come back again and play again.
What about this, the Euros in 2028? So yesterday it was the UK and Ireland.
Yeah, it was done and dusted.
New names in the hat.
Yeah, it was all done and dusted yesterday. It looked like that we were the only people that were bidding. And I think I made a joke saying that then Russia will probably come in. And my goodness.
Couldn't make it up.
And they've come in and then said, we would like to bid for the Euros in 2028. Now, also, they've seen probably there's a loophole in the way that UEFA work. They are officially allowed to bid for the Euros, which is, of course, a complete nonsense. Players and teams have been banned, or teams have been banned. UEFA have already done that. Yeah. But the actual Russian Football Federation is officially not banned. So they already have a man on the board who's on the UEFA board anyway. This is a man who is the CEO of one of the
Was it Gazprom?
It's Gazprom. It's not actually Gazprom. It's one of the companies, subsidiaries along with Gazprom. So he said that, OK, yes, we are going to bid for this. But whether it's all smoke and mirrors and they know that they won't get it, and then it's obviously causing problems then for our bid, and also because then official bids have to be lodged now. Yeah. And now Turkey have come into it as well. It's like, can't UEFA just say, look, it's our rules, we've decided, we're not going to have to go through all this legal problem. You're out. You're not going to be part of this.
All of this so last minute as well.
Absolutely.
Chelsea, the licence that the government has put on them to be sold off has been relaxed somewhat.
Yeah, it has. I mean, this is the away tickets. So already, if you go to see Chelsea, if you've got a season ticket or you already have tickets that are bought, you can go to the game. But when it comes to away tickets, that's a different kettle of fish. So they're trying to work out how they were going to do that. Of course, there was the Middlesbrough game recently in the FA Cup, and it was talked that maybe no Chelsea fans could go. Chelsea tried to get the game behind closed doors, which is also a nonsense. So I think what's been arranged now is that away tickets can be bought, that money will go to the home team. So as long as Chelsea do not financially make any money out of this or benefit from it, that will go to the home team. So there will be away support.
So that means they can sell tickets for their home Champions League quarter-final against Real. 6th of April, FA Cup semi-final at Wembley on the weekend of 16th of April, and that's against
But
Palace.
they cannot benefit financially from it.
OK, so we've got the World Cup playoffs.
Yes, now this is a really big night, and it's a huge night for Wales, because Wales are going to be playing Austria tonight. Now, the way that this works, and it's a semi-final playoff. So they have a semi-final against Austria tonight, which have been played in Cardiff. It could be the first time that Wales have qualified for the World Cup since 1958. They've got, great Cliff Jones played for them those days, and they played against Brazil, etc. This is over in the World Cup in Sweden. So they haven't qualified since then. So they've got 2 games to get through. So it's Austria tonight. Should they win that, they would win. They would play the winners of Scotland against Ukraine.
If
now,
it's played.
For obvious reasons, that's not being played tonight, and that's been postponed. So when that gets played, we don't know. But the game, whoever wins that game, will then go into the World Cup.
Scotland, though, are in action tonight. They're at Hampden, 7:45 kick-off against Poland.
Wales. No. That's in the friendly. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a friendly tonight.
Yeah.
So it would have been the playoffs, but they're playing Poland in a friendly. Poland would have been playing Russia in a playoff, but obviously Russia are now no longer in. So Poland will then get to play the winner of Sweden versus the Czech Republic. I feel like I'm making a very complicated draw here.
Well,
or a simple draw, very complicated.
Could have been Shakespeare, couldn't it?
It could have been. That would have made probably a little more sense to me, and that would have been none whatsoever.
Thanks, Paul. 7:31 is the time. We'll go to the break, and then after that, we'll be reviewing the morning newspapers with David Wooding and Dom Neeson right after this.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back at 7:33. Let's take a look at this morning's headlines.
Challenging and uncertain times lay ahead for the country, according to the Chancellor, after forecasters predict the biggest fall in living standards on record. Talking about this next in the paper review. The Chancellor said he will support hard-working families, but Labour says he's done nothing to tackle the cost of living.
As part of a new support package for the country's forces, Britain's sending 6,000 more missiles to Ukraine. It comes as NATO leaders are meeting in Brussels, including the President as well, to see which measures exactly 1 month on are needed since the start of the invasion.
The meeting today will demonstrate the importance of North America and Europe standing together, facing this crisis. And we are the strongest alliance in the world, and as long as we stand together, we are also safe.
The latest on the P&O ferry situation. The chief executive will be quizzed by MPs later over the sacking of nearly 800 workers without notice. His name is Peter Hebblethwaite. He will appear in front of the Transport and Business Committees, and as the Prime Minister says that the company had broken the law and the government will be taking action.
The Duke of Cambridge has expressed his profound sorrow over slavery and recognised Jamaica's pain. After days of protests, Prince William addressed the issue during a speech in the country, saying it was abhorrent, but he stopped short of apologising.
And the Queen is to feature on the cover of British Vogue for the first time in a special issue celebrating her Platinum Jubilee. It will come out in April, and it will showcase the 95-year-old monarch in the early years of her 70-year reign. And let's have a look at the papers and what is going on there. Dawn Neeson, the journalist, and David Wooding, the political editor of The Sun on Sunday, will do that. Good morning to both of you. David, for you, well, it's the big story in town. What did you make of the Spring Statement, or what is the Daily Telegraph making of it?
Well, the Daily Telegraph's going on that headline figure, which is the backdrop to all the measures, which seem a bit small fry considering the political and economic landscape. The biggest fall in living standards on record. Yes, it's the worst drop in the standard of living in this country since 1956. So if you've just retired age 65, it's worse than the worst in your lifetime since the day you were born. And against that as well, it's the biggest tax burden we've faced since 1949. We're now paying something like 36.3% is tax of our GDP. And everything that the Chancellor has tried to do will have very little of an impact on changing the problems we're all faced with, energy bills rocketing. And he's of course got all those problems with the debt, £83 billion to service that debt, 4 times what it was last year, all because, of course, the pandemic, £400 billion spent on that. What I like here is this piece by David Frost at the bottom of page 1 of the Telegraph. He's likened the problem that Rishi Sunak has to George Carew, who was Vice Admiral to Henry VIII, sailing the Mary Rose, and he says it's an unstable, botched ship. You've had a redesign. The Monarch wants more heavy cannon on board. The Monarch, of course, being Boris Johnson, who wants to spend annuals limping out to sea, and of course we all know the Mary Rose sank. So there's a bit of a redesign of the ship of state required if we're to survive this months and weeks and years ahead.
We were just saying in the break, it really is frightening. And when we're talking about these drop in living standards and going back to the 1940s, the periods of rationing where people were making casseroles on a Sunday and living off them for the rest of the week. I mean, are we going to see all of us, people who are in good jobs, all really struggling this year, or at least, seeing a huge change in our lifestyles? And that's certainly what your old paper, The Star, seems to think.
I've picked the Daily Star up. Obviously, I do write a column for them, but I love the take on it, because obviously the budget was announced yesterday, so you will have watched full coverage on GB News, so you will know all the nitty-gritty and the details. And every paper has got it on page 1, and then see pages 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, ad nauseum. Now, the Daily Star has gone, it's the Up Yours mini budget, which I think pretty much sums it up for most of us. Inside today, the usual load of utter rubbish from a rich, insincere, smiling politician with nice teeth. Why we'll be worse off than the 1950s, but be thankful for it, missing a rude word out there, and how the cost of living crisis is not the fault of absolutely anybody in government. Of course, perish the thought that it would be. So they've treated it with a light touch, and you do have to smile at the cheek, because I think that's the attitude that a lot of people will have, as you said, Isabel. Even the husband yesterday came and goes, right, I'm going to make meals to last us the rest of the week, and I'm going, oh my God. Oh, God. But I mean, it's like we are getting to that now. We are getting to the stage of what my grandparents and my mum did when she was a little one. During in London during the wartime, and it's like really making to amending, cutting our cloth. But
can we do that? I'm genuinely interested. We've all got so used to our lifestyle, haven't we?
Yeah.
I mean, are we really going to be making do and mending? And
I tell you what we're going to be doing. We're not going to be taking holidays. You're not going to be having treats like weekends away. I certainly would be all in favour of cancelling Christmas. But what a waste!
I've heard it all now.
It's a waste fest. It's a waste fest on presents.
It doesn't have to be. It doesn't need to be cancelled.
For most people, if you look at your budget, no, I'm just saying, if you're looking to make serious,
cancel your car before you cancelled Christmas.
I think you will cancel cars. I think you'll not be buying new cars and things as well. I think there'll be big things that are going to make a big difference. A holiday will make a big difference to your budget. The expenditure that you use at Christmas, you're going to be saying, well, instead of buying, presents for you three, I just might have to buy one for her and forget you two, But, I do think that you got to make big cuts in big situations like this.
No, it's difficult. It's going to
forget cars. Who's going to think about buying a new car? You can't even afford to drive it.
Well, especially an electric car, which is twice expensive.
Yeah, and the cost of fuel if you haven't got an electric car. Only 5 pence off that.
Can't afford to do
Just
anything
one to think
anymore.
about. What would you cancel? Subscription to satellite services, for instance, as well.
Do that.
I think those.
That's a good idea.
We're on Freeview. We're good.
You can stick with us.
That's the whole point. That's the knock-on effect of this, because as people cut back, they don't buy the car, so that's bad for people working in the car industry.
Yes.
And they don't. If they cancel TV subscriptions, then jobs will go there, and wherever they cancel.
Surely a Tory government should be concentrating on rebuilding the economy, especially after the pandemic. And none of this is going to help. None of this is going to help businesses. It's not going to help employment. It's
because I would say, why would he be caring about the economy in 2-3 years' time? What's in the budget? Because there could be, David, every chance that with a proper Labour administration, if there was one, they could do themselves out of business here as government.
Yeah, of course, when we get to the next election in 2 years' time, even that 1p tax cut that he's promised, if he doesn't deliver that, he's going to get pilloried for it. If he does deliver it, people already have been told about it now. So he's got to give a little bit more. And people are going to be feeling the pinch for 2 years. And where are they going to be in 2 years' time when they come to put that cross in the box?
Dawn, where are we with the Jamaican visit with William and Kate? You go to the Mail, page 4.
Yes, this is our, basically sort of cancel culture. This is Jamaica basically wanting to cancel the Queen, paraphrasing slightly. Prince William was expected to tackle Britain's history of slavery head-on in Jamaica. And it comes hours after the Prime Minister of Jamaica, Andrew Holmes, wants to ditch the Queen as head of state, told Prince William and Kate, this is an opportunity for you to tackle unresolved issues, which, of course, there is a discussion to be had here. And, you know, Mr Holness is saying Jamaica is a country very proud of its history, very proud of what we have, and we are moving on. Now, Jamaica gained independence from the UK in 1962, but the Queen is still head of state there. And much fuss has been made in all the papers, and especially on social media, the 100-strong demonstration who met Kate and William when they landed in Jamaica and got off the plane. Now, Jamaica has a 2.9 million population, so 100 people out of that lot. And they have been far outweighed by the people meeting them saying, we love you, and you know, giving them good positive vibes. So, yeah, there are conversations to be had. And I do, for the first time, feel a bit sorry for Kate and William, but they are sort of like caught in this position of like, well, what do we say? We have to be diplomatic, but do we apologise for slavery? I mean, what do we say? I mean, you know.
I can't remember a tour that they've been on that has been received like this. I don't know about you. I mean, it's the first tour they've done in 2 years, so my memory is a bit vague, but usually they are generally well received wherever they go. So to have this kind of backdrop, is it a new kind of anti-royal sentiment that's growing, sort of anti-Commonwealth?
It's 100 people, Isabel. I think anti-Commonwealth, I get that, I completely understand it. But for the royalty in particular, especially the Queen in her Jubilee year, you know, she's coming up to 96, she's lost her husband. And for the Jamaican MP, I get the background, I get the history. But to talk to William about cancelling his grandmother...
it's difficult. Yeah, it's
hard.
I want to finish on a medical story here and the link between the menopause and carbohydrates. Interesting. This is in the Mail, page 31.
Yeah, these diet stories always create a lot of interest, and there's a nutritionist who's talking about how to beat the risks of the menopause by changing your diet, and it seems
the risks or the effects.
The effects of it.
Right.
So refined carbs.
Will you stop looking at me when you're talking about this?
Refined.
You don't look like you've seen a carb.
You're a long way to go
years.
yet, Dawn. She's a long way to go for that. Refined carbs seem to be the problem. They have a negative effect. And if you can cut them out, so that's things like bakery goods, rice, pasta, or if you have them with some kind of oil, then that has a glycemic effect of reducing your blood sugar, which does away with some of the negative effects of the menopause, according to Sarah Berry, who's an author on this.
Basically, what I'm taking away from this story, though, it doesn't matter what sex you are, whether you're going through the menopause. If you stop eating as many cakes and biscuits and bread, you're probably going to lose weight and be a bit healthier.
That's probably a good bit of advice. Yeah, there you go. Sorry. Who needs to go through all the strife?
7:45 is the time. We'll say hello again to David and Dawn in about 45 minutes' time. The top stories are these.
Challenging and uncertain times lie ahead for the country, according to the Chancellor, after forecasters predicted the biggest fall in living standards on record. In his spring statement, Rishi Sunak said he'll support hard-working families, but Labour says he's done nothing to tackle the cost of living crisis.
Britain is sending 6,000 more missiles to Ukraine as part of a new support package for the country's forces. It comes as NATO leaders meet in Brussels to discuss further measures exactly a month on since the start of the invasion.
The meeting today will demonstrate the importance of North America and Europe standing together, facing this crisis. And we are the strongest alliance in the world, and as long as we stand together, we are also safe.
As you've just heard, the Duke of Cambridge has expressed his profound sorrow over slavery and recognised Jamaica's pain. After days of protests, Prince William addressed the issue during his speech in the country, saying it was abhorrent.
Now, as the war between Russia and Ukraine escalates, more civilians are volunteering to help the war efforts. Dressmaker and business owner Marta Tronanowska used to be a dressmaker, but now makes war nets to help the Ukrainian army. Very good morning to you, Marta. What gave you this idea?
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
What gave you this idea?
Oh, I don't understand.
What inspired you? What inspired you to turn your skills into this?
I am helping since I remember. This is something natural for me, and I was helping before war animals, children, old people. So when the war started, it was something obvious that I need to help those people. And we started from helping people who came to Poland. We bought for them some clothes, some cosmetics, some food. And we thought that that we can do something better, something bigger. And I have Ukrainian seamstress, so we was thinking, what can we do for people who stayed on Ukraine? And we decided to make some camouflage for soldiers, for Ukrainian soldiers.
Camouflage, yeah, camouflage nets. Now, those ladies behind you, if we can just see them, who's working away, their normal job would be making wedding dresses, I understand?
Yes, as you can see behind me, oh no, this side, we are making wedding dresses during one day, so they are really good tailors. And nowadays, after hours of our work, we are making this camouflage capes. So normally we are making wedding dresses, yes.
Yeah, and look, when I heard about this amazing story, it took me straight back to the images we saw of women doing similar things with actual fabric from wedding dresses, turning them into, it was the other way around, wasn't it? It was parachute silks being turned into wedding dresses. But it has, it's very evocative of World War II. Was that something that sprung to mind, gave you the inspiration?
I really don't know. It was maybe because I am working with different materials and whole my life. So I thought that maybe I can use these materials which I have in my atelier. But when I put this information on my Instagram that I want to make something like this, one of my friends told me that maybe I should talk with somebody who do it professionally. And he told me that we can do it better because this material which we wanted to use, it was synthetic, and synthetic will be shining on the sunshine. So the best if we use natural materials. And we thought about coffee bags and raffia grass. And we're making something like this, as you saw on photos.
Such a good idea. And Marta, I suppose once this is all over, and we all need hope, don't we? Once all of this is over, you may well be even busier than before the war, because we're hearing reports, a translator that we've been using has just got engaged. The fear of losing your loved ones, it boosts proposals. People want to be with their loved ones. And once this war is over and the men and women are reunited, do you think you could be in for lots of weddings, wedding dressmaking?
Oh, I hope so, because pandemic, as you know, it was not something good for our business. But I hope that it will be better. And if not, we just change our business for something else. Maybe, I don't know, some sport clothes. I don't know. I hope that everything's going to be okay. And my great seamstress, they are all Ukrainian, and they are really strong believing that everything's going to be okay. So I'm start to believe it too.
It's amazing.
Fantastic.
So as Marta was saying, her seamstresses are all Uranian. She employs 4 Ukrainian women who work for her, and once their day job is finished making wedding dresses, they then stay there and work on all that camouflage to be sent to the front line in Ukraine. Thank you very much indeed, Marta. Very interesting. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank
there
you.
She is. Marta in her dressmaking shop, live from Poland there.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Now, it's Shakespeare Week this week, an annual celebration aiming to give children across England an introduction to one of the world's most famous playwrights. But we're asking if the works of William Shakespeare are a little outdated in 2022.
Well, here's Zahara Chaudhry, and she is a teacher, and she's in Beaconsfield. And Zahara, you're not convinced that in this day and age Shakespeare should be compulsory?
Yes, hi. So I don't think, I don't want to say that I don't think Shakespeare should be cancelled, nor should his texts be banned at all. I don't think students should hate Shakespeare either. However, Shakespeare has, since I started teaching over 10 years ago, but even when I was at school and before that, been a compulsory element of the GCSE curriculum. And as an English teacher, and when I was teaching full time, when a text is compulsory on GCSE, it effectively then shapes the Key Stage 3 curriculum too. And we all know that as much as Shakespeare is so rich in terms of language, it contributed to our understanding of culture, society. We understand so much about England's historical context through Shakespeare. The accessibility of Shakespeare's language for a range of students is actually quite difficult, and then can form a barrier to students' enjoyment of literature. Equally, as a teacher, and I'm sure there are many teachers who might relate to this, as students constantly will ask us in lessons, why are we still doing this, miss? Is it still relevant? Like, surely we could do something else. And I think those questions can become quite exhausting. And actually, the students have a point. There are so many other rich texts that can help make literature more accessible, language more accessible. For example, when I taught, Pride and 19th century literature is also compulsory on the GCSE curriculum. And when I was teaching it, one of the ways I made it accessible was through teaching Bride and Prejudice alongside Pride and Prejudice, and then looking at extracts from A Suitable Boy, for example. And those texts then make 19th century, Jane Austen in this example, more accessible. Same goes with Shakespeare too. So it's just asking the question, not to cancel Shakespeare, but equally, why is it that we have kept those canonical texts compulsory and not necessarily looked at a more diverse, relevant range of literature?
The argument would be that we've kept them because they are, historically the most successful items in literature, British literature, going around the world. And you think of all the Jane Austen stories, all the Shakespeare plays, the films have been made about them, remakes, adaptations. When you're saying everything that you struggle with, people saying, oh, why are we still talking about this and it can't relate to their life? It says to me we need to be starting younger. We need to be educating from a younger age.
What, Shakespeare?
Yes, Eamonn, because that's
Zahara,
the key.
Zahara,
let me finish my point.
You're talking sense. She's not, obviously. But I think the whole point about it is, I think it should be a voluntary study as opposed to a compulsory study. And you're talking about people who get to university and they can't spell and they can't use grammar, and we're forcing Shakespeare down their throat.
And that's exactly it. I think Shakespeare primary schools do teach Shakespeare. You get there are so many wonderful resources now to make Shakespeare more accessible. And there's, even the Globe recently have put on a webinar series of seminars around anti-racism, for example, in Shakespeare. But equally, it's almost like we're putting a lot of effort into one author who absolutely has a place, and we do need to value what he's done, and we do. There's no question about that. I don't think that's the argument. I think it's more that if we want to teach a 6-year-old or a 5-year-old,
guys will just cancel it because it's a bit hard. You know, that's what will happen.
I don't think
if we make it optional,
I don't think it's being cancelled.
People are saying, you know what, No, I'm not saying a cancel it, but I'm just saying if you say, look, people aren't interested in it and they don't want to do it, we should make it optional. The net result is that we'll lose it.
Well, again, and I wonder if we flip that and then think again about the other texts that could come in to perhaps help students with literacy, to help students understand, like, evaluation and analysis are two of the key skills that are assessed at GCSE English for GCSE English Literature, and then obviously if you decide to take it onto A level and then university. And equally, those being able to evaluate a text needs to come after you've understood the language, after the language has become accessible. If Shakespearean English, like when I was at school, when I was in year 7 and I had to do, I think it was 12th night, I thought I was reading French. It took a lot of spark notes. My previous students will probably laugh at me saying this, but it took a lot of spark notes, Shakespeare made easy, for me to then be able to understand 12th night, to then be able to evaluate and analyse. And I think if we think of the amount of pressure on students these days with regards to the grades they have to get, the global context that they're competing in, the art, we really want to keep the arts interesting. We want students to still go into reading,
We've got to cut across you because we're coming to a break, but I think you make that point very well. I think it's very brave for a teacher to admit that, because you're saying tolerate it, but you have to understand it. You've got to be motivated by it. You've got to understand the text before you can act it out. I remember my love with theatre, the first time I saw Macbeth when I was 12, and it was magical. It was absolutely magical. Yeah. I could understand it because of the witches, hubble bubble, toil and trouble, and you know how visual it was. But really, as regards the text, no, and nothing changed right through to A level, I do have to say. But an interesting debate. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for airing all that. What do you think? Tweet us at GBNews.
Let us know your thoughts this morning.
Shakespearean prose.
Yeah, to be or not to be, sounds like it's not going to be. We'll be back, though, after the break. I'm just saying, if literacy is the problem and critical analysis, start that younger, and then you can go into Shakespeare. Anyway, we haven't got time to get into it any further. We're not going to agree on this. We're going to be live in Brussels because President Biden is there. World leaders all descending on this emergency NATO summit. We'll have all the details after this quick break.
Tonight on GB News. At 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Britain is facing the biggest hit to living standards since the days of rationing after the Chancellor delivered his spring statement.
Good morning. It is 8:01. It's Thursday, the 24th of March. This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel Webster.
We're live across the whole of the UK. Indeed, we're live across the world. We're on TV, we're on radio, we're online. You can download our app, and here's what's leading the news this morning. Good to have you on board.
The Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, has used his spring statement to show off what he calls the biggest package of tax cuts in a quarter of a century. But critics say the measures will do nothing to help those hit the hardest by the cost of living crisis.
The Prime Minister will tell the NATO summit in Brussels today that the war in Ukraine is entering a new phase of aggression and humanitarian catastrophe. It's as he announces that the UK will double the number of missiles it sends to the war-torn country.
Also today, as the transgender swimmer Leah Thomas's win at a women's college swimming event in the United States continues to divide opinion, we'll be asking the former boxing promoter Kelly Maloney, who's transitioned herself, if it's all down to bias and ignorance or if it's a lot more complicated than that.
And you can join in with your views in any of our discussions. You can email gbviews@gbnews.uk or you can tweet @gbnews.
So our top story this morning, the Chancellor has used his spring statement in the House of Commons to reveal what he called the biggest package of tax cuts in 25 years. But it comes amid warnings that Britain could face its biggest dip in living standards since the age of rationing.
So, responding to the highest inflation in decades, Rishi Sunak announced a 5p a litre cut in fuel and a £3,000 increase in the threshold for national insurance contributions.
His cut to fuel duty, which came into effect last night and is a response to the skyrocketing costs due to the war in Ukraine, takes prices back to the level that they were just a week ago.
The most surprising announcement came in the form of a penny cut to income tax, which will bring it to 19p, but it'll not come into force until April 2024, 2 years from now, and just ahead of a likely general election.
However, his statement faced criticism from many groups hit hardest by the ongoing cost of living crisis for failing to safeguard the most vulnerable in society, from pensioners to those dependent on benefits.
The Shadow Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, called the statement misguided and warned families and businesses will now endure significant hardship.
The Office of Budget Responsibility said in the wake of the statement that living standards would still fall 2%. That'll be the steepest drop since records began in the 1950s.
They also forecast that inflation would hit 8.7% this year, massively outstripping wage growth.
Well, we can speak now to a GB News viewer, Rachel O'Brien from Great Yarmouth. Very good morning to you, Rachel. I'm sure, like the rest of us, you listened to that statement yesterday, and you've been spending all your time since trying to work out exactly where that leaves you. Are you thumbs up or thumbs down this morning?
Absolutely thumbs down.
Right, why?
Definitely thumbs down. Well, it's all misdirected again, isn't it? I mean, look, I'm not going to pretend that I have a political head, but I do understand numbers. So all these numbers that he was coming out with, like, oh, we're going to save the households $5 million a year and whatever else, it's really not going to help households like us, because when you consider that, yes, our household might have an increase of around £1,500 a year. Just my gas, electric and food costs have gone up by about £3,000 per year. So considering that we were already struggling, it's just going to just drive us deeper and deeper into debt for necessity.
Let's paint a picture, Rachel, of who you are and what your circumstances are. So there you are. You're speaking to us this morning from Great Yarmouth in Norfolk. Mark is your other half. You've got 2 children as well. So what's the situation? Is Mark earning?
Yep, Mark goes to work full time. So he brings home the wage. I stay at home with the children. So we are reliant on top-ups from the universal credit system, which, as I understand it, will be going up slightly, which will, don't get me wrong, that will help in the immediate. However, at the moment, we're sort of getting into, we're going into the year, and it's only going to get worse. You listen to it on the news constantly, like, you know, it's going to be bad now, but come October, we're going to be a lot worse off. And I mean, I don't know what families like myself and other families that are worse off than us are going to do, to be quite honest.
See,
because
one of the things, Rachel, one of the things people might say, well, it's not me saying this, Rachel, but you know, people will be shouting at the screen and saying, well, Rachel, go out to work. Why wouldn't you go out to work?
Yeah, absolutely. And do you know what? A few years ago, I would have probably said the same, because before I had children, I didn't understand how much childcare would cost. Childcare is crippling, absolutely crippling. And if I was to go out and sort of do maybe 70, 80 hours a week, like I always have done, might I add, that it would still not be enough. We'd still be in the same sort of position as we are now.
Rachel, we spoke to you earlier in the year when we launched our show, and you talked to us about how much the cost of living crisis was worrying you. You talked about sleepless nights. You talked about feeding your family on £1 meals. Things have got worse. The war in Ukraine, inflation at the highest level in 30 years. How are you feeling, given all of that context? I mean, you know, last night, for example, as you totted up all of the things the Chancellor announced, are you still having sleepless nights?
It's getting worse. It is getting worse because you can't do anything about it. You cannot do a thing about it. I mean, so when my gas and electric bill comes through, if I can't pay it, then what happens? If at the end of the week I have no money left to go and buy food, then what happens? Because, I mean, only 2 weeks ago, there was an article in our local newspaper, the food banks are empty. Because this is affecting not just people like myself, they're affecting people that both go to work full-time, family that have 2 full-time workers. So, for instance, they're not able to now help with food bank donations. It's affecting so many people, and it is only going to get worse. And I just think the statement yesterday, I think he is absolutely deluded.
I think, you know, he talks about why he didn't do a windfall tax on energy companies because he says the country needs the foreign investment in the infrastructure and whatever. And yet all these companies, these energy companies, private landlords, retailers, whatever, they all exist to make money off people like you, and they will come back. Do you think they should be capped or given windfall taxes?
Yeah, of course. I mean, how is it that I think for people like us, we are the ones being hit? And the problem being is from what I understand, it's people like us that go out into the shops. We go shop locally. We go and we spend our money in the towns. So now, I mean, it was hard before. We're not going to have that sort of money anymore to actually go and buy an ice cream, for instance. So that business is also going to be hit, a small business. The only businesses that will exist is the bigger companies, like you say, like the big oil companies and so on. And how is that going to help the economy in the long run? I don't know. But it's certainly not going to help us. They should be taxing, like you say, a windfall tax.
And the local ice cream shop's not getting your money, and the whole economy's affected by the fact that you can't sleep at night and whatever. It's a profound story which resonates, I think, with a lot of people, Rachel, because I think no matter if you're in work, you're out of work, people are frightened, people are scared, people don't know what's going to happen next.
Yeah, it's impossible, and you've got your little ones to think about, and you also must be worrying about the future. In one sentence, really briefly, because we do have to move on, I just want to ask, you know, will this affect how you vote, do you think, the way that this has been handled?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm ashamed to say I voted the Conservatives in the last election. I will never vote for them again.
Rachel O'Brien, GB News viewer from Great Yarmouth. Really good to have you on the programme. Thanks for talking to us today.
And try and have a good sleep tonight.
Yeah.
God bless. Thank you very much. Thank you. Top stories on this Thursday morning are like this. The lack of support for low-income families in the Chancellor's spring statement will leave more than 1 million people on the verge of absolute poverty, according to the Resolution Foundation. It's a think tank which says that the measures were a big but a purely targeted policy package. The Chancellor said his plan delivers the biggest net cut to personal taxes in over a quarter of a century.
Boris Johnson says Russian President Vladimir Putin has already crossed a red line with his barbarism towards Ukraine. Britain's announced a new support package for the country, including 6,000 missiles for Ukraine. NATO leaders are meeting in Brussels to discuss further measures exactly 1 month on since the start of the invasion.
The meeting today will demonstrate the importance of North America and Europe standing together, facing this crisis. And we are the strongest alliance in the world, and as long as we stand together, we are also safe.
The Duke of Cambridge has expressed his profound sorrow over slavery and recognised Jamaica's pain. After days of protest, Prince William addressed the issue during his speech in the country, saying it was abhorrent.
Well, Prime Minister Boris Johnson will set out a new support package for Ukrainian forces, including 6,000 more missiles and anti-tank weaponry, when he meets with NATO leaders in Brussels this morning at this emergency summit.
Let's go to our political editor, Darren McCaffrey, who's there in Brussels for us now. Good morning, Darren. What are you expecting from this meeting?
Well, three meetings, Eamonn, extraordinary meetings, it must be said, at that. The leaders, all leaders of NATO here in Brussels this morning, they are currently meeting. Then we're going to see a meeting of the G7, also at NATO headquarters. And then EU leaders and President Biden. Joe Biden is in town, the first time he's visited Europe since the war in Ukraine began a month ago. He's going to attend a meeting of EU leaders later on today. Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, not expected to attend that. Clearly top of the agenda is Russia, and different threads to this in many regards, Eamonn. First of all, there is a desire for more economic sanctions, particularly being pushed by the United States and those in Eastern Europe. Those sanctions, though, there's a bit of a split on whether it should include things like oil and gas more. Germany concerned about their supply and the effect it could have on European economies. And then there's the defence aspect of this, something that Britain is substantially pushing. They argue that Ukraine is doing much better in this campaign than anyone would have thought, Eamonn, and they're asking European countries to deliver more weapons to the Ukrainians. The Germans and the French, according to the Ukrainians, haven't delivered on their promises. Britain, though, suggesting it's going to offer an extra 25 million quid in military aid and also thousands more missiles for the Ukrainians to fight against the Russians. So a big important day today here in Brussels. Lots of talks. We'll be watching out for those developments on more weapons, but also potentially more sanctions by the close of today.
We'll leave it there. Let's talk again after 9 o'clock. Thank you very much indeed. Joining us now, former Deputy Chief of MI6 and Senior Advisor at the International Institute for Strategic Studies. That's Nigel Insker. Good morning, Nigel.
Good morning.
What would you expect from this NATO gathering today? Indeed, we've got a G7 and various EU meetings coming up, all in relation to Ukraine. What more can they do?
Well, I mean, obviously, as the last speaker was saying, there's a question of what more material assistance can be given to Ukraine. They're doing very well with the equipment that they've got, but inevitably they're using it up, and the more that they can be provided with, the better. I mean, the UK, I think, has pretty much given the Ukrainians all the anti-tank weapons that we actually have, having to start a new production run just to keep the supply going. But getting more focus and buy-in from other states within NATO is going to be an important part of this. Sanctions, yes, so that's not really NATO's portfolio. But I think the other thing that NATO is going to be looking at is the question of how to reinforce security in those NATO states that are potentially most vulnerable to Russian interference or even spillover, talking about the Baltic republics and the countries of Eastern Europe. I don't know exactly what is going to be talked about at this meeting. I've not had access to classified information for the last 15 plus years. What I would like to see, and this is just a personal opinion, is some thought about how, so to speak, NATO can lean over more onto Vladimir Putin's side of the fence. For the last few years, Putin has been engaging in a succession of progressively more aggressive behaviors, and every time he has not met with effective resistance, that's emboldened him to do more. History suggests that in these situations, sooner or later, you have to do something, and the longer you wait, the higher the cost. So I'd like to see some thought being given to greater NATO pushback.
That's really interesting. And of course, we've heard this argument, counter-argument to that, being reeled out time and again, that of course, well, he's got his finger on the nuclear button. And I suppose that, I want to ask you about the breaking line that we've heard this morning, the Prime Minister saying that Vladimir Putin has crossed a red line with his barbarism in Ukraine. If he's crossed a red line, he's threatening us, saber-rattling with nuclear attacks if we, take any action directly against him. At what point do we actually stop the bully? When does this end?
Call his bluff.
Yeah, indeed. Well, that is an enormously difficult call, and there are risks. I think Putin really does feel that this whole Ukrainian issue is for him existential. And being a totalitarian autocrat, he makes what is existential for him coterminous with what is existential for Russia. And so this does make for a very difficult calculation. I'm not saying that we shouldn't look for some kind of off-ramp, some kind of face-saving formula that can enable Putin to walk this back. But that does have to be backed up by clear messages about what might happen if he doesn't. We've got to take some risks here.
And as you say, otherwise the risk is appeasement, isn't it? But I just want to ask you about lots of reports. And I know you're not in MI6 anymore, so you're not privy, or perhaps you are, but you're not able to share with us important intelligence. But there are reports doing the rounds in the British papers this morning about the two absolutely key generals that President Putin was famously pictured at the beginning of this invasion at that huge table. You remember the pictures. That's Sergei Shoigu and his general Valery Gerasimov, absolutely key allies of his. Neither of them have been seen now since something like the 11th of March. Extremely unusual for the Russian defence chief and his chief of Russian general staff to be absent in this way. We heard reports yesterday that Putin's advisor has quit and now fled the country. So as you say, it is existential for Putin, isn't it? His team's sort of not into this war at all.
Well, no, and I think that a lot of the very poor performance of the Russian military in Ukraine reflects the fact that their hearts really aren't in it in the same way that necessarily they are for the Ukrainians. For Russia, this campaign in Ukraine has been an intelligence failure of epic proportions. The Russian intelligence services completely misread the situation. Well, it's partly they misread the situation, but partly they did not dare speak truth to power. And Vladimir Putin has only himself to blame for creating a set of circumstances where the people under him don't dare tell him the truth. So what we had was, a Russian intelligence operation by the FSB, the internal service, which also has responsibility for intelligence collection in Russia's near abroad, the former Russian Soviet republics. They're not good at it, and they produced a kind of Prozac analysis of how this war would play out. A quick insertion, decapitate the regime, replace it with some quislings, all over in 48 hours. And this is clearly what Vladimir Putin told Xi Jinping when he met him in February.
Yeah. Well, let's put all that in.
None of this has happened.
Yeah, none of it's happened, but let's put it in reverse. What if it was to happen in Russia? How likely is regime change, if at all? What is the future for President Putin?
Well, regime change is something I know a bit about, and I think it's something that has to be approached with great caution. I can never remember whether it was Lenin or Trotsky who said, when an autocrat's in power, his overthrow seems inconceivable. Once he's been overthrown, it seems inevitable. Getting rid of somebody is, in effect, the easy bit. The question is what happens next. And the problem with a regime change is you can have no confidence that what comes after will be better than what went before. It could actually be worse. And if we had a kind of power vacuum in Russia, we've got the alarming situation of, in effect, nuclear-armed chaos, which I think is arguably the worst possible outcome. So that has to be thought about very carefully. If Putin is to be got rid of, the Russians have to do it, and we shouldn't get involved.
OK. Nigel Inkster, really appreciate that. Nigel is a former Deputy Chief of MI6. He's now a Senior Advisor at the International Institute for Strategic Studies. Thank you very much for your time and your analysis.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Always interesting to hear from former top spies. Coming up after the break, we'll be talking more about the spring statement. It's on the front of all the papers this morning. We'll be finding out why Chancellor Rishi Sunak has become an unexpected style icon. Find out about that after the forecast.
Good morning. I'm Alex Deakin with your latest weather update from the Met Office. Plenty more sunshine to come today. It's a little chilly out there first thing. We do have a little bit of mist and fog around in places too, but generally high pressure is bringing more sunny skies, not just for today, but for the next several days. A weak weather front is drifting close to the northwest, so it is going to be a cloudier day for parts of Northern Ireland, western Scotland. May even be one or two showers here as well. And through the day, some cloud will bubble up to maybe provide the odd isolated shower over northern England and northeast Scotland. Mist and fog around this morning, but it is steadily clearing. It certainly should be gone by midday. And then plenty of sunny spells lifting those temperatures. After that chilly start, we should peak this afternoon well above average for the time of year, 15, 16, 17, maybe 18, 19. Possibly even 20 degrees once more in one or two locations. Any of these isolated showers over northern England, northeast Scotland, they should fade away through this evening. And once they're gone, it's dry nights. And again, most places having long, clear spells. The nights are still long enough for that to turn things pretty cold. So temperatures close to freezing once more as we start Friday morning. Certainly in rural areas, there will be a touch of frost. Again, some mist and fog patches are likely here and there. And on Friday, we could see a bit more of that mist and low cloud around the coast of Northern Ireland, southwest Scotland. But again, for the vast majority, Friday is another blue sky day. We will see some thickening cloud over the Northern Isles, maybe a little bit of rain at times on Friday for Shetlands, and that'll suppress the temperatures here. But elsewhere, again, look at those temperatures jumping up after a cold start to widely into the mid to high teens by Friday afternoon. Friday evening, again, temperatures drop away, but with this area of high pressure moving in on Friday and sticking around through Saturday and Sunday, it means, yes, chilly nights, but plenty more warm, sunny spells by day. Goodbye.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. news is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Right, coming up on our programme this morning, the transgender debate that surrounds the American swimmer Leah Thomas is continuing to rumble on over here in the UK as well. Having transitioned herself, what does the former boxing promoter Kelly Maloney make of it all? She'll be live in the studio talking to us a little bit later on.
Rishi Sunak has been described as an unlikely style hero. He's been heralded by GQ magazine, and they should know the magazine...
I'll take over. The magazine chancellor, the magazine says our chancellor is getting it right, but how, we want to know this morning. Eamonn is going to take a moment because he's having a cough. Maria Maloney joins us, founder of the Fashion Business Hub. Very good morning to you. Look, he certainly wants to be a bit of a style icon, doesn't he, with his trendy Instagram pictures, his soft lighting, his cashmere jumpers. But is it actually working?
Well, he's quite a small man, you know. He's only 5'6", so he's very cleverly styled himself to maximise his shape, really. So he wears very tailored, beautifully tailored suits, slimline trousers, slimline jacket, single button, which gives you a long V here with the long thin tie, which all elongates the body. So quite clever, really, in his dress. And of course, we have seen him in his casual wear. This is saying, you know, I'm a family man as well, I'm one of the boys. But actually, let's go back to those suits, because I think this is what's earning him the reputation. He always looks sharp, and he's a complete contrast to our friend Mr. Johnson. And it kind of mirrors his eloquence at the dispatch box. So clever use. Now, we don't know whether he's cleverly styled or he's just interested in the way he looks, and he knows what suits him, and he's sticking to it. But perfectly tailored suits. There's nothing better than to see a man in a well-tailored suit. You only have to turn up at a family wedding or a black tie event, and the impact of those men looking sharp, looking fab.
You're not seeing a man in a well-tailored suit. You're seeing a well-tailored man in a suit, and any rag will look well on a man with a decent physique, I always say. Now, poor Boris is not blessed with the same, of course. Neither am I myself, but if you've got a slim body, there's no excuse for not looking well.
Hanger.
Yeah, but there is, because he could wear a boxy double-breasted suit, and that would make him look shorter and squarer. So you can be very clever with the way that you wear. Look at you today. You look fantastic in that tailored suit. It's been tailored to suit you and fit you perfectly, and that's the difference. The number of times you see a man. A good suit, a well-tailored suit can you know, make any man look better, any man. But you're right in that respect, but he could get it wrong, and he could get it wrong with a bigger, boxier shape, more flared trousers. You look at his trousers, they just skim the ankle, which again, with dark socks, dark shoes, elongates
But he's got little
body.
jockey legs. He's the height of a jockey. He's a very small man.
Don't be heightist. He's not that much smaller than Boris. I do think the comparisons between him and Boris are unfair, because there's a huge age gap between them as well as a physique gap. So he's always going to look trendier. You know, poor old Boris. You know, as you say,
what's the age gap between them?
I think Boris is late
16
50s.
years, isn't it?
Yeah, and Rishi Sunak's only 42. So he's young. But my question, this might be controversial, I'm speaking from my own experience, I pretty much try to decide what my husband wears because he hasn't got a clue. So could it actually be that Mrs. Sunak is a bit of a hero when it comes to dressing him?
She could be styling him. She could know what... I mean, all women know what suits their man better. And so she could be styling him. That's why I said, but you do, increasingly now in modern days, you do get men who know what suits them, and stick to that look, whether it be formal or casual. They know what suits them and they're sticking with it. But yes, you're absolutely right. His wife does have her own style, and she could be shopping and buying for him. But I would say
she's loaded as well, so she can afford. She's a millionaire, isn't she, in her own right? So she can afford all the sharpest
not
cut.
off the rail. They're not off the rail. I'm telling you, they are tailored. They're Savile Row suits.
But Maria, in general, I notice about British politicians, always have done, if you get what I call the American president style, which is dark suit, white shirt, and a, say, sky blue tie or a red tie or a yellow tie or something, presidents tend to have a uniform like Clinton or Bush. All of them have. All of them have. Biden has. They dress very, very well. It defies me why British politicians don't dress the same.
Good question. Well, he obviously is, isn't he? And if you want to think about politics, what he's doing, you could argue that actually he's offering a contrast. You know, he's showing respect to his position. He's dressing well. He's represented the government, stood at that dispatch box, and he is offering a contrast to Boris Johnson.
Do you know what I would say, Maria, just in terms of what he wears as a man? He wears those suits, you know what man like Ant and Dec do? They wear suits that are far too small for them. That sort of look, that they have the figures that allow that to happen. But Rishi does that as well. And I think, personally, well, that isn't him in a suit, obviously.
No, but that was what he put on his Instagram last night. And look how stylised that was.
But look at his little suit. Look at his little suit. I think if he actually wore a grown-up suit, if he moved from children's clothes into adult clothes, I think he would look generally a bit better.
But if you were to give him...
there's a row of 4 men and he looks the best.
Yeah,
so this is the style for younger men, this slimline look.
Yeah, and Maria, the hair. I mean, his hair is always slick, beautiful side parting. And look, again, you know, I was sticking up for Boris, saying that comparison's not really fair. But Boris Johnson's hair is an absolute disaster, isn't it?
Yeah, do with a
bit of
gel in
If I was
there.
his mother, I'd sort him out.
Yeah.
You've seen his father, his hair's a
That's
disaster.
true. Not quite as bad. Boris's is the worst. Anyway, look, a bit of light relief to all of the discussions around Rishi Sunak. Really good to have you on, Maria Maloney. Thank you very much.
Maria, you wouldn't come and advise me some stage.
You don't need any advice.
He doesn't.
Just get a mirror. You look fantastic.
There you go.
That's a good point, Maria. You look at how many people actually don't have a mirror at home. There must be so many of them. They don't have one. Thanks very much.
Or they have a magic mirror.
Yeah, well, that's I'd like one of those.
My tailor
Maria,
has a
thank
magic
you.
mirror.
Yeah, what does it do? Slim you?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they're the
and you
worst.
buy anything
yes,
and everything.
I know.
You walk there and you say, "Oh, look at me! Look, I'm amazing."
Yeah.
And this,
and then
but I'm
get home.
Jeff. I'm only joking, Jeff. I am. Yeah.
Look, stay with us. It's 8:33. We've got to go. We've got to take a quick break. We'll be back with the headlines and a paper review. See you in a moment.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate.
From all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
Make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel.
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there. I'm Eamonn Holmes,
And I'm Isabel Webster.
and we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn.
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
OK, let's bring you up to date with today's top stories. And the lack of support for low-income families in the Chancellor's spring statement will leave more than 1 million Britons on the verge of absolute poverty, according to the Resolution Foundation. The think tank says the measures were a big but a poorly targeted policy package. Chancellor Rishi Sunak said his plan delivers the biggest net cut to personal taxes in over a quarter of a century.
Boris Johnson says the Russian president has already crossed a red line with his barbarism towards Ukraine. Britain has announced a new support package for the country, including 6,000 missiles for the country. NATO leaders are meeting in Brussels today to discuss further measures exactly a month on since the start of the invasion.
Prosecutions have been launched over alleged health and safety failings relating to the Croydon tram crash in 2016. The Office of Rail and Road says it's prosecuting TfL, Tram Operations Limited and the driver, Alfred Doris. 7 passengers died, 51 were injured.
The Duke of Cambridge has expressed his profound sorrow over slavery and recognised Jamaica's pain. After days of protests, Prince William addressed the issue during a speech in the country, saying it was abhorrent.
The Queen is to feature on the cover of British Vogue for the first time, can you believe it, in a special issue to celebrate her Platinum Jubilee. The April issue will showcase the 95-year-old, not as she is now, but in her early years of her 70-year reign. Looking beautiful.
Time to go through the papers now. Joining us, the political editor for The Sun on Sunday, David Wooding, and the journalist, Dawn Neeson. Right, so we're saying, David, we're going to begin with you, and we're talking about that spring statement. And you heard that report which says it was a substantial but poorly targeted package.
Yes, what the Chancellor seems to be doing, and this is echoed in the front page of the Financial Times today, is balancing the economic needs with the political requirements. So the headline in the Financial Times is Sunak banks windfall for pre-election tax cut. Yes, he's promised jam tomorrow, 1p cut in the basic rate of interest rates, but won't get that for 2 years. Meanwhile, he's tweaked some of the policies at the moment. He's given us a 5p cut in petrol duty, and the strange one here is the cut in the raising of the threshold by £3,000 in the national insurance contribution. So that takes about 30 million people those under £36,000 a year out of that. The worst, the sting taken out of that national insurance, but then he doesn't cancel it. People have been calling for him to cancel it. He said that 12 billion quid from national insurance was needed to fund social care and health in the wake of the pandemic. Yet he's now wiped out half of that, 6 billion gone. So yes, it's balancing that need for some political red meat for the Tories.
And just give us a flavour of your 24 hours, David Wooding, because as a political editor, it's absolutely frenetic, isn't it, days like this? And it wasn't supposed to be as big a deal as it ended up being yesterday, but wading through all of these huge numbers, trying to work out what it means. I mean, your brain must be absolutely fizzing this morning.
Yeah.
And I suppose also as a follow-up to that, we've got Simon Clarke coming on in about half an hour. He's number 2 to Rishi Sunak. You know, what would be your headline to him?
Well, you're right, Isabel. We get these paperworks dropped on us about that thick. There's the budget speech, and then there's documents going with it, which are about 3, 4, 5 inches thick, which we have to wade through. And then you get the spinners. You get the Labour Party coming round telling you what is wrong with the budget, and you get the Conservative Party coming round telling you what is great about the budget, and you have to balance the two out and come to a conclusion in rather quick time. We on the Sunday papers, of course, have got an even worse job because we have to tell you what's in the budget on Sunday before he's even delivered it.
Yeah.
So, that's part of the problem.
They're quite good, though, at leaking that, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah, they do, because they like to
Yes.
they like to tweet. I have a theory about that. I'm convinced that the Treasury, number 11, do their round of interviews on Sunday. They talk to all the Sunday papers. They kind of get a sense of what the mood is, what's working, and have a tinker before they announce it on Wednesday. Do you think there's any truth in that?
Well, the problem since they moved, they used to have it traditionally on a Tuesday. When they moved it back to Wednesday, it became a little bit harder for Sunday papers because it's another 24 hours, and in the last minute frenetic race towards delivering a statement or a budget, it makes it harder to get your
I
hands
tell you
on
what
it.
went against him, though, with that briefing, that pre-briefing. When he announced the 5p cut in fuel duty, there was no real reaction because everybody knew that it was going to happen.
If they did tinker with it after talking to the political journalists, they didn't really do well because every single paper is negative. Even the Telegraph and the Express, normally big cheerleaders for Boris and Rishi. Very negative. Not enough.
The phrase somebody used to me last week about this, we all knew it wasn't going to be that great, was that it would be policy light. Don't expect any rabbits out of the hat. Maybe he'll pull 1 or 2 baby bunnies out, and that's exactly what we got.
And you were saying in the last paper you think there might be another mini budget ahead of the budget in October because he's going to have to do something.
He might have no choice but to do something before that, because one of the reasons he hasn't done much now, he says, is because the situation is so unpredictable with the war in Ukraine. So he's saving stuff back for the autumn when he does his main budget. But he may well be forced into taking action before then if the cost of living crisis bites.
Dawn, we're going to the Mail. This is page 5 in the Mail. You've selected this story, and it's about Cambridge University and wokeness.
I've picked this story because the other big story going on at the moment is Kate and William on their Caribbean tour and the whole slavery and all the demonstration of 100 people against them. But this is linked to that story, and this is a landmark court defeat for Cambridge University, who wanted to remove it's not even a statue, it's a plaque to a philanthropist called Tobias Ruster, who died in 1608, by the way, just in case anyone's interested. They wanted it removed because he had potentially links to slavery, although it's not quite clear what exactly were the links. And they wanted it removed, but a group of ex-pupils at the university have gone, no, we don't think this should happen. So it went to a court case for the first time. But you actually had one master at the college going, this is in a chapel, by the way, this. One master at the college going, I'm so upset by this plaque, which is hidden away in a dusty corner. No one even knows it's there. I've been there for years. I can't even go into the chapel anymore. In any case, the judge has thrown this out, saying, the college is saying that, the amount of upset that it caused to visitors has been over-exaggerated, and it's nonsensical to remove this. I mean, and the judge actually said, no, the plaque linked to slavery can state as none of us is without sin. And I think we have to start getting a little bit realistic now about erasing every single thing in history, because one person was upset.
Well, and also there's the argument, isn't there, and we'll come on to Ukraine in a moment, and even, looking at what's going on in Afghanistan, we focus on these things to our peril. That's in the past. Yes, there are so many things we could regret, but there are problems that we need to put our attention and our energy into right now. David, let's go to The Guardian. This is a pull-out in there. It's about the fat epidemic, but we're not talking about us chubby humans. We're talking about our beloved pets.
Yes, it seems that not only have we humans put weight on during the pandemic, as we've sit and gorged ourselves on sweeties and chocolate treats.
Said a man.
Said a man. Will of us.
But our poor pets are suffering as well. And under the headline, "Who ate all the mice?" there's a big picture of a rather overweight cat,
fat cat,
and they've done a feature on the growth in animal obesity during the pandemic. It seems that we're all sitting there while we were in lockdown, feeding little treats that we shouldn't be to our cats and dogs. And in fact, there's one a pet charity which says that they've had loads of gerbils which have been overweight, which had been fed in their little cages. Apparently,
the dogs are the worst, you see.
Yes.
Because what happens is they look at you as if, please feed me. I haven't been fed at all yet. And then you check with someone. You said, have you fed the dog? Yes. Well, why is she looking at me like this as if she hasn't been fed? I mean, probably in another life, I would be a dog. One of those people who just look
with the begging eyes.
Please feed me.
Tell us the story about the time you fed your dog What's-It.
Oh, no, that's a no. Just the moral of the story is don't.
Yeah.
Don't.
Well, my last pet was the ideal pet probably for this situation because it was a tarantula spider.
Oh.
And the only thing she ate was her boyfriend's.
It was a win-win. Dawn, you're the best.
Do you know what? I'm just thinking about the budget. Maybe that is why the Chancellor couldn't do anything. He tried to get the rabbit out the hat, but it was so fat, it wouldn't come out.
Or it was eaten by the cat.
Fantastic. Look, a bit of a gear change, but, you know, a really important issue, and we said we'd come on to the situation in Ukraine. The Mail covering this, page 25, which is just reflects the fact that here we are a month in, and it's beginning to not make the headlines. And this is the fact that Russian troops are allegedly using rape as an instrument of war.
Well, was it ever thus in a war situation, Isabel? It's the women and the children that really are at risk and at danger, which is why we should be doing everything we can to help them. Invading troops are reportedly using rape as an instrument of war against Ukrainian women, and it's reminiscent of the Red Army's treatment of German women in the Second World War. And there's some horrific examples, which I'm not going to go into in detail here, of what's happened. It's just unbelievable. And as well as there are 100,000 orphan children, which seems to have just disappeared somewhere in all this, and stories about them maybe being moved over the border into Russia. But, you know, I worked in Rwanda at the genocide, and I went to talk to young teenage girls who'd been raped. And the rape as a war instrument there was horrendous. And you see it everywhere there's war, and it is just horrendous, and you feel so much for these women. And it's like it's not gonna go away until
and it's so similar to the situation with children where they carry these scars for life. Many of the women who are victims of rape from war actually get excluded from society afterwards because they're seen as being, you know, in many societies. We saw it after the Second World War in Southeast Asia. Women were completely ostracised from getting married, having children of their own because they'd been violated.
There's one story in here about a little boy who his dad was shot by a Russian troop, and his mum was raped in front of him, and then they threatened the child, and then you have to wonder. The soldier was drunk allegedly. You have to wonder, how is that child going to grow up? It's seen his dad shot in front of him.
How are these girls in Afghanistan going to grow up? These girls who turned up for school yesterday and then Dawn are sent home because the Taliban say, no, you shouldn't be educated. We haven't thought this plan out.
Well, the reason I picked this story, Eamonn, because it links in with, you know, the treatment of women in the Ukraine, but the treatment of women and girls in Afghanistan. We must never ever forget what they're going through now. I mean, the Taliban, when they took over, promised that girls would be allowed an education and would be treated equally. And the children were meant to be going back to school this week, and the Taliban have said, no, you're not. So there are heartbreaking pictures of little girls who are desperate to go to school, like they're desperate for an education. It's the only way they can escape, being turned away, and they're in tears because they've been stopped to go to school. So the Taliban have completely gone back on everything. And it's medieval what they're doing. And the Taliban's excuse is, we're not quite sure whether your uniform complies with our, the very strict interpretation they have of Islamic law and Afghan culture. And it's the women and the girls out there, we must never, despite our own
This was a school where girls were murdered last year at this same school. Absolutely.
The thing is, Dawn, as well, that, you know, one of the great achievements of the Allied forces going into Afghanistan was the education of women and girls. And let's not forget, it's 22 years since we started opening those schools. Some of the children have gone through childhood and grown up educated. And,
to the highest degree.
And they don't know any different now. They're thinking this is turning the clock back to something that they didn't even experience before.
Guys, got to say goodbye to you. Thank you both, Dawn Neeson and David Wooding. Appreciate it. Coming up to 10 minutes to 9. Let's bring you up to date with today's top stories. The lack of support for low-income families in the Chancellor's spring statement will leave more than 1 million Britons on the verge of absolute poverty, according to the Resolution Foundation. The think tank says the measures were a big but a poorly targeted policy package. The Chancellor said his plan delivers the biggest net cut to personal taxes in over a quarter of a century.
Boris Johnson has said Russian President Vladimir Putin has already crossed a red line with his barbarism towards Ukraine. Britain has announced more support to the country, including 6,000 missiles for the country. NATO leaders are this morning meeting at an emergency summit in Brussels to discuss any potential further measures, exactly 1 month on since the start of the invasion.
The chief executive of P&O Ferries will face MPs later today to answer questions on his company's sacking of nearly 800 workers without notice. The Prime Minister says, in his view, the company had broken the law and that the government will be taking action.
The Duke of Cambridge has expressed his profound sorrow over slavery and has recognised Jamaica's pain. After days of protests, Prince William addressed the issue during a speech in the country, saying it was abhorrent. You've been getting in touch, so many of you this morning, in response to yesterday's spring statement. Des says to me, government in this statement seemed to be trying to force these recipients to find work by turning up the hardship they and their families will experience.
Yeah. Carol says it's about time people started to take some responsibility for themselves instead of expecting the government to do everything. We and my friends are pensioners and we're sick of listening to those whinging about freezing or starving.
Navina says when the chips were down, the Chancellor spent billions on keeping us afloat with furlough. We're that naive to think we wouldn't have to help repay this debt at some point. But Daz says this 5 pence off a litre, no way near a reduction. Add a zero to that, make it 50 pence off a litre. Now that would help. It's a drop in the ocean. Keep your thoughts coming in.
OK, well, let's now talk to our economics editor, Liam Halligan here, who was right across all of this yesterday. As it unfolded, Liam, were you seeing many rabbits come out of the hat, or how inventive do you think it was, or do you think he had wriggle room that he didn't use?
I think it was inventive. Maybe it was a bit too clever by half. This is a Chancellor who's raising national insurance contributions only to maybe cut taxes in a couple of years' time. It's as if he's building up money in his election war chest so he can then give the money away. It smacks of, to me, political gamesmanship. And looking at the papers this morning, you got the front of the Daily Telegraph, which is also, you know, the house magazine, if you like, of the Conservative Party, certainly across the shires. And you've got Alistair Heath, who's a very influential columnist. Tories won't survive if they treat us like fools. The biggest fall in living standards on record. And then at the opposite end of the political spectrum, if you like, the sort of paper of the red wall, the Daily Mirror, very much a left-leaning paper, proud tradition it has. Thanks for nothing, Rishi Sunak. So I do think there's this sense that living standards are really tightening for lots of people. You had the official Office for Budget Responsibility yesterday saying it's the biggest drop in living standards coming this year, since the early 1950s. And yet benefits will only be uprated by 3.1% this year, when inflation is going to be at 8%, official forecast. And on those household fuel bills, the Chancellor unveiled a package of assistance in February, and that was before the Russia-Ukraine conflict, since when household fuel bills are on a much steeper upward trajectory. I don't think he did enough.
Yeah, and look, the devil's always in the detail, and it takes a while to kind of get a full assessment. We had the economist Vicky Price giving him 2 out of 10 this morning. We had David Wooding, the political editor of The Sun on Sunday, saying he's going to have to pull something out of the bag before the budget in October just to help people get through. And we've had other people this morning saying they're never going to vote Conservative again after this. How do you think it's all going to look for the Chancellor in a few months' time?
Well, I don't think the hit in living standards is really upon us yet. And I say that with huge regret. I'm not trying to scare people. And actually, it's what the Office for Budget Responsibility, the head of it, Richard Hughes, said on the radio this morning. He used those precise words because that increase in fuel and electricity bills for households in April hasn't yet come in. 5p off a litre of petrol if the petrol retailers pass it on, if there's not another rise in oil prices that blows away that 5p reduction. Even if you get your 5p a litre reduction, you save £3.50 when you fill up a family saloon, let alone a van, which costs a lot more to fill up. I said yesterday during our spring statement coverage, there will probably be another emergency statement this summer. And I think the Chancellor, you know, all very nice with his £100 sliders and his cashmere sweaters and all styly. Look, there are people who are really worried about feeding their kids this morning. It's not a good look. And that's why I'm afraid I've got a lot of time for the Chancellor. Personally, he's a very clever man. We're lucky we've got really, really smart people in public life, but I think this is politically tone deaf.
Right.
Politically tone deaf. OK, Liam, thank you very much indeed. Michael, who's been in touch with us, said, back in the early 1970s, as the eldest of 5 lads, I was asked by my dad if I would forgo a Christmas present one particularly bad year. I understood what being poor was, though both my parents worked, and they worked hard. Yeah, not a problem, Dad, I replied. I had my paper round, working 6 evenings a week and a Sunday morning, come rain or shine. That earned me £1.50 in new money. We didn't cancel Christmas, but we had to cut our cloth accordingly. So people remember what it was like before, being tough, being without money. It's all come full circle back after this.
Good morning, I'm Alex Deakin with your latest weather update from the Met Office. Plenty more sunshine to come today. It's a little chilly out there first thing. We do have a little bit of mist and fog around in places too, but generally high pressure is bringing more sunny skies, not just for today, but for the next several days. A weak weather front is drifting close to the northwest, so it is going to be a cloudier day for parts of Northern Ireland, western Scotland. May even be 1 or 2 showers here as well. And through the day, some cloud will bubble up to maybe provide the odd isolated shower over northern England and northeast Scotland. Mist and fog around this morning, but it is steadily clearing. It certainly should be gone by midday. And then plenty of sunny spells lifting those temperatures. After that chilly start, we should peak this afternoon well above average for the time of year, 15, 16, 17, maybe 18, 19. Possibly even 20 degrees once more in 1 or 2 locations. Any of these isolated showers over northern England, northeast Scotland, they should fade away through this evening. And once they're gone, it's dry nights. And again, most places having long, clear spells. The nights are still long enough for that to turn things pretty cold. So temperatures close to freezing once more as we start Friday morning. Certainly in rural areas, there will be a touch of frost. Again, some mist and fog patches are likely here and there. And on Friday, we could see a bit more of that mist and low cloud around the coast of Northern Ireland, southwest Scotland. But again, for the vast majority, Friday is another blue sky day. We will see some thickening cloud over the Northern Isles, maybe a little bit of rain at times on Friday for Shetlands, and that'll suppress the temperatures here. But elsewhere, again, look at those temperatures jumping up after a cold start to widely into the mid to high teens by Friday afternoon. Friday evening, again, temperatures drop away, but with this area of high pressure moving in on Friday and sticking around through Saturday and Sunday, it means, yes, chilly nights, but plenty more warm, sunny spells by day. Goodbye.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. news is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Britain faces the biggest hit to living standards since the days of rationing after the Chancellor delivered his spring statement.
Good morning, it's 9:01 on Thursday the 24th of March. This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel.
We're live across the whole of the world. We're on your TV, we're on radio, we're online. Hello, good morning to you. Thank you for your company. Leading the news this morning.
The Chancellor's used his spring statement to show off what he calls the biggest package of tax cuts in a quarter of a century, but critics say the measures will do nothing to help those hit the hardest by the cost of living.
The Prime Minister will tell the NATO summit in Brussels today that the war in Ukraine is entering a new phase of aggression and humanitarian catastrophe. It's as he announces that the UK will double the number of missiles it sends to the war-torn country.
Also this morning, it's the final of The Apprentice tonight, and we'll be meeting one of this year's candidates who clashed with Lord Sugar as we ask her who she thinks will walk away with his investment.
Have your views, have your say. gbviews@gbnews.uk is the email, or if you can tweet at gbnews.
Our top story this hour, and the Chancellor used his spring statement in the House of Commons yesterday to reveal what he called the biggest package of tax cuts in 25 years. But it comes amid warnings that Britain could face its biggest dip in living standards since the age of rationing.
Responding to the highest inflation in decades, Rishi Sunak announced a 5p a litre cut in fuel duty and a £3,000 increase in the threshold for national insurance.
His cut to fuel duty, which came into effect last night and is a response to the skyrocketing costs due to the war in Ukraine, takes prices back to the level they were a week ago.
The most surprising announcement came in the form of a penny cut to income tax, which will bring it to 19p when it comes into force in April 2024, so 2 years from now, and just ahead of a likely next general election.
However, his statement faced criticism from many groups hit hardest by the ongoing cost of living crisis for failing to safeguard the most vulnerable in society, from pensioners to those dependent on benefits.
The Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves called the statement misguided and warned families and businesses will now endure significant hardship.
The Office of Budget Responsibility said in the wake of the statement that living standards will still fall 2%. That's the steepest drop since records began in the 50s.
They also forecast that inflation would hit 8.7% this year, massively outstripping wage growth.
Well, earlier on in the show, we spoke to the economist and business consultant Vicky Price on whether or not the Chancellor has done enough in his spring statement.
To hear that the OBR expects right now that the average, that's the Office for Budget Responsibility, the average for the year will be 7.8%. I mean, that's hugely greater than anyone had expected. And with it, of course, quite a substantial reduction in growth for this year, and very little growth, really. If you look at future years, 1.8, 2.2%, 1.7. So, after not just 3.8 this year, lots and lots of numbers, but what it means is a lot less than the 6% we were expecting. So there's a lot of uncertainty ahead, and even those inflation figures may not be right.
OK, it mightn't be what everybody wanted, but underneath it all, he's basically saying, guys, be very careful here because the cupboard's bare. Isn't he?
Well, the cupboard isn't really bare. Of course, he's
but
quite...
Why didn't he? He have... If he had more wriggle room,
this is
why didn't
big
he
question.
Use it?
Because he's not certain about what's going to happen to growth. Because of the Ukraine crisis, things could get considerably worse. And as it is, if the consumers feel that They've lost confidence up to a point. You've already seen consumer confidence decline for the last few months. They don't go out and spend, and businesses suffer from this cost of input crisis for them, because obviously not only energy prices, but also loads of other inputs coming, some of them from Russia, which have gone up hugely in price. And then, of course, in some sectors, wages have gone up quite significantly as well, where there are serious shortages. So if businesses can't cope and go out of business, so we may be looking at the situation this year being a lot worse than what those forecasts are suggesting. So he would probably need a little bit more. And I'm suspecting that he's saving it because he will need to step in at some point later this year.
Yeah, which is interesting because some of the promises he made yesterday are about future cut to income tax in 2024, which, we know what that's about. That's a political move, isn't it? It's just before an election. But it also begs the question, if he was saving stuff for the autumn, what was the point of this? Was he just tinkering around the edges? And the fact that he's introducing a cut here but raising national insurance there, it seems a very expensive sort of U-turn almost.
It's a little bit like with COVID and how he was reacting then, because you just didn't know what was going to happen next. So we had a series of mini budgets. So there's a little bit of giveaway there, then yes, we're going to take the furlough scheme away at the end of whichever month it was, and then announcing that in fact it's going to stay for a lot longer, and then changing some of the parameters, etc., etc. And I think we're in the same position now. It's not just the UK, I have to say, that across the world people are just not certain at all about the future.
I think the thing is, you look at it and you think, do you think we're stupid? Do you think we're fools? OK, so you raise that threshold and then you tax a bit more here and whatever. And you think the administration to do that must cost more than the actual implementation or the effect.
Well, you're quite right. So the simplest thing would have been, let's not have the increase in national insurance contribution.
But he couldn't do that, could he? It was just...
he could. But he's obviously been having a fight with Number 10. And he may say he's the income tax cutting chancellor, but he just wants to get the finances back in some sort of reasonable balance. Well, they're not going to get in a reasonable balance. We're still going to have to be borrowing an awful lot. And, of course, the debt interest payments are very high now, and the calculations
are... Is it 50 billion a year in interest alone?
85 billion next year.
Oh.
Yeah.
So it's quite a substantial number. It has been about 50. You're quite right.
We spend 45 billion a year on schools, to put it into context. And that's much harder to sell to the electorate, isn't it? That you're spending all this money but not actually getting anything for it at all.
Yes, but we did get quite a lot for it, which is that the economy would have done considerably worse if we hadn't borrowed, as he did, like lots of other countries did, and then put it back into the economy. So we put back something like just under 20% of our GDP back into the economy during the COVID period through extra stimulus measures, and also the Bank of England putting tons of money into the economy. Now, without that, we probably would be in recession still. So we have seen some benefit. But yes, of course, there is a price to pay, and interest rates are going up.
Well, we're joined now by the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Simon Clarke. MP, very good morning to you. Look, you'll have seen the papers this morning, no doubt disappointed that even the right-leaning and sympathetic Daily Telegraph and indeed the Express highly critical of the statement yesterday.
Well, I think yesterday's statement was a really important and measured intervention in what is a really difficult time for families up and down the country. And I recognise fully that against a backdrop of very high inflation and very great uncertainty, it's hard for people to feel overjoyed about things at the moment. But what the Chancellor has done is offer a really serious package of tax cuts and obviously help with the cost of living, notably the big cut in fuel duty, the record cut in fuel duty that came into effect last night. And that is what is affordable at a time when, as we've just been hearing, we're going to be spending over £80 billion on debt interest payments next year. We do not have an unlimited war chest here to throw against what is a global inflationary crisis. What we have to do is use the headroom that we have to best effect to support those families who most need it. And that's what the Chancellor has done yesterday. And I think it was a very sensible and worthwhile thing for us to do, which will make a real difference to families.
To the working poor, tell that to the people who have to choose between heat and eat. You know, the thing is, Simon, it just didn't come across as caring. It didn't come across that you guys there really were in touch with the people who we talked to on this programme who come on. And we had a woman this morning, she's a young woman, probably in her late 30s or so, mother of two. She says she literally can't sleep at night worrying about how to pay for her kids and pay for fuel bills and all that sort of thing. People are scared. They're scared stiff, and they just wanted someone to put an arm around them and hug them and say, don't worry, we're here.
Well, the government is doing an awful lot in this space. So we doubled the household support fund yesterday to £1 billion. That's there precisely to support the 3 to 4 million most vulnerable households with life's essentials. Just last month, we delivered our energy support package. So everyone living in council tax bands A to D will be getting a £150 rebate on their energy bill next month, and then a further £200 off in October. We have to be honest, though. We cannot solve all the problems of everybody in a crisis like that.
I just don't think people at home accept that.
Isabel, just let me finish this point. We cannot pretend it will be compassionate for us to chase after every inflationary pressure in the way that Eamonn's comment suggests that we ought, because if we do, we will lose control of the public finances. We will end up in precisely the situation where we have to cut public services, because ultimately the government is no different to anyone else.
It's not my comments. It's not my comments. It's here's the Mirror headline, for instance, thanks for nothing. So just to make that clear, it's not my comments.
And both of those measures that you outline, whether it be benefits, whether it be those measures that were brought in a month ago that you were describing, neither of those are keeping in line with this record inflation that we're seeing. But what is benefiting from that record inflation is your tax receipts, and you've got this wiggle room. Why not give that back to the people who are really hurting? Everybody is saying it. This is the worst drop in living standards in 70 years, till the time of rationing.
Well, we've given yesterday what amounts to the biggest cut in personal tax for 25 years. But to that point on wiggle room, there is some wiggle room, but that would be eliminated entirely by a 1.3% increase in the cost of borrowing, which is obviously very far from inconceivable in this landscape. That is how fragile our headroom is. And the OBR yesterday was absolutely explicit that there is very high uncertainty, which, given what we've seen, obviously not just with COVID, but with the ongoing situation with Russia's attack on Ukraine, is certainly the case. We are in a very, very uncertain world at the moment, and we would be risking the public's money and crucially the delivery of vital public services if we were to spend right up to the limit.
Simon,
we have to be cautious.
Simon, if we're in such an uncertain world, why are you telling people you're going to reduce their income tax by a penny in 2 years' time?
Well, we've set out a tax plan here which shows how we intend to help people with the cost of living and with the burden of personal tax, which I certainly want to see come down over the medium term. I think it's important to see that there is a plan, and this is how we're going to set about it. The OBR's figures, the independent OBR's figures, support our assessment that by 2024 the economy will be back in balance. We'll have a much healthier debt to GDP ratio, but crucially also inflation will be back below 2% by 2024. So we will have, at that point, the safe margin to deliver that income tax cut. I mean, I completely accept that we are, as always, in a fast-developing situation, but you have to have a plan. And the plan that we've set out does allow people to see both how we're going to deal with this situation, but also crucially that there is hope on the horizon, that things can get significantly better once the worst of these inflationary pressures have come off, which they will start to do in 2023 and will do fully by 2024.
Well, Simon Clarke, thanks for explaining all of that. You are Chief Secretary to the Treasury. I have to say, whether people agree or disagree with you, I wouldn't like your job, mate. I wouldn't like your job. So thanks for defending what you went through. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed.
Now, before we go to the headlines, I just want to bring you some live pictures of NATO leaders meeting this morning in Brussels. We've been seeing all of the main heads of state arriving in Brussels. In fact, the pictures just disappeared. We were going to bring it to you. There we go. So among those, we should have just somewhere in there in the melee, Boris Johnson should be there, as well as President Biden. First time he has actually been in Europe since the outbreak of war a month ago this morning.
That's nice. Cut me up while we're
Conducting there.
Correct. Lovely, lovely. What we're going to say is please move on now to the next link. Thank you. All through this. Thank you. Since this is how it works in TV. We have to keep adapting, changing. It's a bit like running the budget.
The budget, a mini budget halfway through.
There we go. That's not it. Keep going, please. Please to our next item. Thank you very much indeed. There we go. Just keep going. Yes. Thank you. So what we're trying to tell you is that earlier this week, Florida Governor, a man called Ron DeSantis, signed a proclamation declaring someone called Emma Weyant the winner of a women's college swimming event, despite her loss to a transgender athlete. So she came second, but he said, no, because a transgender athlete won the swimming competition, you are going to get the first.
So Leah Thomas actually beat Weyant last Thursday by 1.75 seconds in the 500-yard competition, becoming the first transgender NCAA American champion in the division. Now, the governor of the state where this took place refuses to acknowledge Leah Thomas as the winner and says Emma Weyant had the fastest time of any woman in college athletics. So there is, as you can see from all this, a big row.
Joining us in the studio, boxing promoter Kelly Maloney, who has transitioned herself and is with us here to share her opinion. And the reason I love having you here, we've known each other for many, 25, 30 years or so. And I knew you before you were Kelly very well. And I made this mistake talking to your daughter one day, and I said, but he's got to do this. And I went like this. And you didn't make an issue, your daughter didn't make an issue out of it, and you understood. And she said, I call him all the time, and instead of her and whatever. And I thank you for the confusion. I think people are much more used to the idea now as well. But you understand, I think, the emotion on both sides of the argument with us.
I do, because I feel for 60 years of my life, I lived as a man. Yeah. Most people know me as Frank Maloney, and I still get, like yesterday, I bumped into an old friend from Peckham, and all she referred to me was as Frank, and she kept going, I'm really sorry, and I went, it's not a problem. This is the first time you've met Kelly. Yeah. So it is a matter, you know, I think some of us in the trans community cause our own argument with society. We have to accept we're not biological women, we're medically constructed women.
Which is the point, right?
Yes.
So we get to this swimming gala in America and this whole argument in sport in general. So what would you say, should transitioned women be allowed to compete with naturally born women?
I honestly don't know the answer to that. I'm not a professional in that subject. You read one science paper which says no, you read one science paper which says yes. What there's not been done is a complete, utter study of a trans athlete and a woman athlete. There's no real study to accept if there is a big difference. I work with a top sports scientologist who worked with Lennox Lewis. He says there is a difference. We and him disagree in a lot. I believe that everyone should have an opportunity to take part in the sport they choose. And let's be fair, sport is not a level playing field anyway. There's always cheating in sport.
Some factor, yeah.
You know, even in football.
Whether it's home or away, whether it's steroids.
Yes, well, this is the point that Sharon Davies has been making, the Olympic swimmer. She said that, you know, competing with men who've taken chemicals to become and transition into women, it's like competing with athletes who've been doping. They get a medical advantage.
No, I don't know if that's true or not, because it does affect your body. I can only talk of personal experience, you know, and obviously age also affects you. But you've got to remember, your body changes, your mental attitude has to change, and all that affects you. I mean, this woman in America, her time was not the best in it. You know, it didn't even break a record. It was it's about the 10th or 12th best time in that race. And she, you know, the world record for that was set in 2017 by a genetic woman. It has never been beaten, broken. So she's like, I think she was about 5 or 6 seconds behind that, and there's 10 women in front of her. So she's not an elite athlete.
Yeah. Kelly, what I think is interesting about this whole argument is that there are actually rules around this in the States, and they say that you have to compete, you're able to compete, as a trans athlete 3 years after you've undergone hormone treatment. But in this case, Leah hadn't completed the 3 years. She was 2.5 years. But the college let her do it anyway. So they're breaking their own rules because people are afraid, aren't they, on this issue, to say what they really think.
You shouldn't be afraid. And, you know, I mean, the sports governing body should all get together and organise a proper testing series on trans women, on athletes, on everyone, because they just take the average man and use him, and they take the average woman. Well, they're not athletes.
What about Bruce Jenner's argument? Because, of course, he's an Olympian himself, but when he was a man, now Caitlin, he's saying these athletes should, of course, be entitled to transition, but why not wait until after your professional career before you transition? Why not compete as a man and then transition?
Well, because sometimes it's very hard. You have to live. We live with very lot of emotional disturbance in our life. You know, as Frank Maloney, the boxing. I know if I had transitioned as Frank Maloney when I was at the height of my career, I would have been a much better boxing promoter than I was, because I wouldn't be hiding something. I wouldn't be fighting myself. You know, emotionally, it's very disturbing. And you know, the swimmer had to come over all that emotion. Look at the fuss they made about the weightlifter. She came nowhere in the Olympics. No trans woman, other than, I think, a cyclist, has won as a major competition, and obviously the swimmer. But they're not breaking world records yet.
They're not a threat.
We're not a threat, and that's it. And we need to sit down and debate this. You know, the photographs they used were photoshopped maliciously, how they were done at the angle to show was wrong, and there were wrong photos. There were 2 photos put together. Because you never get 4 people on a podium. You only get 3 people on a podium.
Well, it'll take better heads than ours to solve
But do you know what we should do? It should be one of those subjects that we sort of, you know, when you go to the pub, you don't talk about religion or politics. We should drop talking about trans in sport for a little while until there's a clear definition from the science world, which is right or wrong.
Well,
there you go.
as I say, I've known Kelly for many, many years, and last year in Belfast...
We bumped into each other.
So I'm filming in a prison, right? And meanwhile, she is on a tour from a cruise ship that is docked in Belfast Harbour. So she stands in front of me. There's people asking me for selfies and autographs or whatever it is, and she stands in front of me. And you know when you see someone completely out of context, and you think, huh? She stood in front of me and she went, well, and I'm going, well, what? I'm sort of thinking, I just thought she was Mrs. Miggins from Wigan. I didn't know who she was.
I didn't have an Irish accent.
Oh, gosh. And then he says to me, and we were standing there doing this, it just was so funny. And then I clocked on who you were, and
I thought you'd been sent to prison for a term of...
No, you thought I was part of the tour. You got off the boat and
they just wheel out
Eamonn. Holmes and Hill tours around the prison.
Lovely to meet you. Kelly Malone, lovely to see you again.
Thank you very much. Lovely seeing you.
Right, stay with us. We're going to be talking about Apprentice. Of course, it's the final tonight. We're going to be speaking to one of this year's candidates after this quick break.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for...
Breakfast with Eamonn.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Now, if you're a big... Oh,
yeah,
go on.
Sorry.
We're both doing this today. I was just going to say, if you're a big Apprentice fan, you don't want to miss this next item.
Yeah, it's the Apprentice final tonight on BBC One. 2 remaining contestants. They battle it out for a £250,000 investment and the chance to become Alan Sugar's newest business partner.
Yes, so Harpreet Kaur and Catherine Byrne are the last 2 candidates to make it in this all-female final. And we can talk to one of this year's candidates who knows them both, and that is Amy Ansell. Very warm welcome to the programme. Thanks for joining us. Most people will probably remember you from this series as having a big ding-dong with Lord Sugar. Look, it comes across as if he's really quite scary. Was it unpleasant?
Not terribly. Listen, we're all looking for our next business partner in Lord Sugar. So ultimately, he's going to like you, he's not going to like you, he's going to respect your business acumen or not. So I did the best I could to prove to him that I should be his next business partner, but, you know, you can't force it. So he didn't see it in me and he fired me.
What do you think of the whole experience? I mean, you've obviously had a successful career before going on. A lot of people use the programme to launch their career, but it's kind of shifted, hasn't it, over the years, the show?
I think people go on for various reasons. I'm a serious business person. I went there to look for the investment, to look for a future business partner. It didn't work out for me, but I think others, sadly, do go on for other reasons.
Okay.
Is it true you've been actually banned from this final tonight? You were prohibited from being there.
So I did partake in the final to support one of the finalists, so I did go back for that. But when it came to the final taping of the You're Fired, You're Hired show, I was not asked back, sadly.
And look, you say with a sort of, I don't know how to describe it, sort of look in your eye when you say some people go on it for other reasons. I mean, is it a bit like Love Island in the sense that some people are just fame hungry?
I think some people do see it as that, and that's a sad reality. But what can you do? That's just the way of the world these days with reality. And I think even though The Apprentice is factual entertainment, I think a lot of people do see it as a reality show now.
So one of the great things about being on The Apprentice is if you fall down, you get back up again. You've fallen down. How are you going to get back up again post-Apprentice?
Oh, I already have, Eamonn. I dusted myself off, and I went there to scale up and expand my beauty business, Hollywood Browser Beauty. And since I left the show, we've gone into several new countries, and I've also secured many UK retail accounts. So I'm doing okay without him.
And just finally, who do you think is going to win tonight? It's between Harpreet Kaur and Catherine Byrne, all female finalists. Who's your favourite? Who's the nicest? Who's got the best potential? And who's going to win?
You know what? I love that it was an all-female, history-making semi-final, and now obviously 2 females are in the final, so that's super exciting. I know Harps and Catherine very well. They're both very, very deserving. I was really Team Catherine for the longest time because I felt like she really evolved. Her business is great. I did support her in the final. But now, having watched the interviews, I actually think it's going to be Harps because there were some holes in Catherine's plan that I felt that Lord Sugar was very worried about. So I think it's going to be Harps.
Oh,
good. Lovely
Thank
talking to you. Lovely
Great
seeing you again. Glad you enjoyed your experience and good luck in the future.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Not that you need it.
Thank you very much. Amy Ansell there, Apprentice candidate for the 2022 run, 9 o'clock tonight on BBC One.
And that's it from us for today. Tom Harwood is up next with the briefing at 9:30, and we'll see you again very soon. Bye-bye.
Good morning, I'm Alex Deakin with your latest weather update from the Met Office. Plenty more sunshine to come today. It's a little chilly out there first thing. We do have a little bit of mist and fog around in places too, but generally high pressure is bringing more sunny skies, not just for today, but for the next several days. A weak weather front is drifting close to the northwest, so it is going to be a cloudier day for parts of Northern Ireland, western Scotland. May even be 1 or 2 showers here as well. And through the day, some cloud will bubble up to maybe provide the odd isolated shower over northern England and northeast Scotland. Mist and fog around this morning, but it is steadily clearing. It certainly should be gone by midday. And then plenty of sunny spells lifting those temperatures. After that chilly start, we should peak this afternoon well above average for the time of year, 15, 16, 17, maybe 18, 19. Possibly even 20 degrees once more in 1 or 2 locations. Any of these isolated showers over northern England, northeast Scotland, they should fade away through this evening. And once they're gone, it's dry nights. And again, most places having long, clear spells. The nights are still long enough for that to turn things pretty cold. So temperatures close to freezing once more as we start Friday morning. Certainly in rural areas, there will be a touch of frost. Again, some mist and fog patches are likely here and there. And on Friday, we could see a bit more of that mist and low cloud around the coast of Northern Ireland, southwest Scotland. But again, for the vast majority, Friday is another blue sky day. We will see some thickening cloud over the Northern Isles, maybe a little bit of rain at times on Friday for Shetlands, and that'll suppress the temperatures here. But elsewhere, again, look at those temperatures jumping up after a cold start to widely into the mid to high teens by Friday afternoon. Friday evening, again, temperatures drop away, but with this area of high pressure moving in on Friday and sticking around through Saturday and Sunday, it means, yes, chilly nights, but plenty more warm, sunny spells by day. Goodbye.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
Make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel.
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also